Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody. My name is Aldo Gandia, and this is our very first episode of what we're calling right now Bears Special, but will evolve into BSing with Aldo Gandia. This is actually a concept that I've had a long time ago, which is that I would interview people from all cross sections of life. Now, today's show is going to be heavily focused on the Chicago Bears. We're going to talk about the Senior Bowl and get some expert opinions on to what's going on there. And Danny Shimon will help me with the questions from a couple of guys from InsideTheHashes.com. And then Patrick Finley and JJ Stankevitz, a couple of names that Chicago Bears fans know well, and Colts fans now that JJ is working for Colts.com. I'm going to talk to them a little bit about sports journalism and get their thoughts too on what's happened at Hallis Hall over the last couple of weeks. And then we'll finish the show with a couple of other Barroom Network people who will share their thoughts on the lawsuit brought up by Brian Flores and the allegations of tanking games and so forth. So that's going to be an interesting topic, and we'll also talk Bears with those people as well. So it's a three-part show, and let's get on to our first part by first welcoming in my partner, Danny Shimon. Danny, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great, Aldo. How are you tonight?
Good. You're in Studio B tonight, huh?
Yeah, I'm coming from my alternate studio. I'm alternate location. I'm hunkered down, watching tape, breaking down some of these Senior Bowl prospects here. Unfortunately, I had some technical difficulties last night, so I'm a day behind. But I just barged through day one tape, and I'm about to after I'm done with you tonight, about to head into day two.
Well, as always, appreciate all the hard work you put into preparing for Draft on Tap, our premier draft show here on the Barroom Network. All right, let's bring in our guests. They are down in Mobile, Alabama, and that's not a good shot of them. That's a better shot of them.
There you go.
They are from InsideTheHashes.com. Jerome Jones is over on the right, and Jake McKeppin is on the left. How you doing, fellas?
Doing good. Down in Mobile, very happy to be down here. My fourth year. Mr. Keppin's first year.
Yeah.
So we're very excited to be down here. Get to interview a lot of great players, and we're excited to be on your podcast. I know me and Aldo actually met each other in Mobile, so this is something that we've been kind of hoping to do, and we're finally doing it. So I'm very happy and glad to be here with you guys.
That's right. It was, I think, 4 years ago where we were watching the game and we were seated together. We introduced ourselves to one another, and then we went on to interview the players and talked some more. And then we saw each other the following year and said, we need to establish a closer connection. And so I'm so happy to have you guys here and for you guys to share what you're seeing and hearing down at the Senior Bowl. We have very particular needs. Danny told you just before we went live that we need help at just about every position.
Other than quarterback and running back, we're looking for help in everywhere else.
Exactly. So let me begin with the general question. In terms of players that are flashing here early in the practice week at the Senior Bowl, can you share with us 2 or 3 names of guys that there's a growing buzz about?
Well, for me, my guy is a wide receiver out of North Dakota State University, and that will be Christian Watson, the wide receiver, small school guy, but he's flashing to me. He's one of my favorite guys down here so far. I think if you need a big body receiver that can run routes, fairly good speed, can get off the gym, that's the guy you need right there. Kevin, you got anybody that you...
I really do like Watson as well. I mean, moves how you would not expect to at 6'4", really fluid mover. Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, the edge rusher. He was someone that I think was a borderline first rounder coming into the season, really broke out in his last year with Florida State, but has virtually been unblockable. Perry Winfrey is another great example there. He's also been unguardable in those 1v1s, but Jermaine Johnson has been fantastic the past 2 days, and we got to speak with him too. Very confident player, believes he's amongst the best in this draft, and I mean, he's showing it. There, you can't really argue with that sentiment right now with how he's playing.
Excellent. Danny, why don't you take it away and fire away some questions?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the guys, I mean, I have both those guys on my list. Jermaine Johnson, guys, has been unblockable both in the one-on-one pass rush drills and in 7-on-7s. The way he bullied Kennard from Kentucky and just threw him down those one-on-one drills last night or yesterday, I should say, very, very impressive. Like that kid, if he was borderline first round, I think he may have. Of course, this is only part one of a three-part, process in terms of the draft preparation. This is the Mobile Senior Bowl. Then we go to the combine. Then obviously there's pro days. But I think right now Jermaine Johnson his stock is skyrocketing. He might be a late first round pick. But in terms of Christian Watson, another kid. We're looking for receivers here, and you talked about it. 6'4", 211, hands catcher. The guy shows some pretty good body control, being able to contour his body. Extend his arms, make plays away from his frame, which really caught my eye in terms of the his first day at practices there as well. So one kid that we're looking for DBs here, defensive backs, and a couple of kids from the national team that caught my eye is a kid from Penn State, Tariq Castro Fields. I mean, he was all over the receivers in one-on-one drills. I like the way he stays in phase downfield. Curious your thoughts on the kid from Penn State, and then the other one is Damari Mathis from Pitt, another cornerback that I think had a pretty good day, day one. So curious your guys' thoughts on those two kids.
You want to start, remember?
Yeah, I agree with both of those guys. I was diving through the practice film last night once we got back in, finished writing and all that. And Castro Fields, I wouldn't say he was someone I was worried about coming into this, but I was kind of like more undecided on how I felt about him. But he was pretty much sticking to guys in the 1v1s, and Mathis had a really couple good reps where he was, stuck on the receiver's hip and got a hand in there and made a play. I was impressed with both of those in the first day. Didn't get to catch either of them that much on today, but on that first day, I agree. They were two that stood out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with one of the big names, obviously, McCrary. From Auburn. I mean, I personally feel like people are downplaying him because he is a smaller guy, got smaller hands, wingspans are a little smaller, but the guy's a baller. He's just gonna go out there, he's gonna play for you, and we got to interview him earlier, and he said that that never been a problem for him with his arm length, and it hasn't. I mean, he's not just talking; he really don't have issue with his arm length. So I mean, it's really preference, but like if you wanted somebody that's gonna be a baller out there and not gonna give up and be physical with the receiver, that's a guy that I want on my team. I mean, I don't care about the arm length and stuff like that. I let the experts complain about that, but for me, I want a baller on my team. That's a guy.
Yeah, for sure. Archie McCurry from Auburn is a guy that, although we talked about it prior to the Senior Bowl, is a guy I had my eye on, and that high second round range area, a physical corner. A guy that does a nice job of staying in phase. You guys hit it. Jacob and Drum both hit it there. He's being knocked around because his arm length came in a little bit, less than ideal. But again, we're talking about a guy you put on the tape, physical presence in terms of coming down and supporting the run. Does a pretty good job staying in phase, and downfield. And guys, we went through a coaching regime change here. We're converting from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Probably a cover two, zone scheme here. So a guy like McCrary play on some off coverage, being able to plant his feet and accelerate downfield and be an enforcer in a run game there is a guy that the Bears have their eye on as well. So the other position that we're looking at here is offensive line, and a small school guy that really caught my eye is this kid Braxton Jones from Southern Utah. 6'5", 306, 36-inch arm length. What you like to see in your left tackles, and for what caught my eye was his athletic ability. The guy moves like a basketball player out there on that field, and his ability to kind of shift his balance, stay pretty good knee bend. Just an athletic kid. Again, small school kid, but to me, he doesn't look like he's intimidated by these bigger names here. So curious, have you guys seen the same thing with Braxton Jones from Southern Utah?
But this is your wheelhouse, so I'm gonna let you start on this one.
I like Jones from what I've seen. He is probably, if not the longest player in this class, in this group down in Mobile. He's definitely top 3 in terms of arm length, and he uses it so well. He covers so much ground with not only his size but his athleticism. When he gets hands on these defenders, they're not going anywhere. He's just so naturally strong. I really liked him. Another small school tackle from North Dakota, I believe, Waletsko. If I'm saying his name right, I'm not sure. But he was someone I knew nothing about coming into this game. You know, we all know about North Dakota State, obviously, but we don't know about their in-state counterpart. But he's another guy. You look at some of these smaller school linemen, there's this worry that almost they can look out of place against the higher level competition, because not only are they playing FBS competition, they're playing the best of the best guys, especially with this D-line group, which is fantastic. And he hasn't looked phased one bit. Him and Tennessee Chattanooga's Cole Strange are both small school guys that have just completely taken this process in stride and have not looked out of place one bit. And that's exactly what you want to see from these smaller school guys.
Yeah, another tackle is Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa. I think he came in with the first round grade already, mid to late first round. But I think all he's done so far, for me at least, has fortified that this is a kid that's making that jump up from Northern Iowa. Of course, his teammate Spencer Brown is playing and starting for the Buffalo Bills this year. So I think that's a kid. Trevor Penning is a guy. If he drops in that top of the second round range, I mean, that'd be an ideal pick for the Bears. I just don't think he'll be there. But again, that's a guy that's really impressed me so far. Just kind of flipping over to the other side, in terms of defensive line. Again, we talked about the Bears, going from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Probably going to be looking in the market for an interior defensive lineman, probably a 3 technique. A guy that came in for me, I had high marks on him, and I think he's done pretty okay. He hasn't really stood out. Is Devontae Wyatt from Georgia? 6'3", 307. I think he's a guy that's ideally suited for that interior 3 technique. A guy that's going to play off the shoulder of the interior guard. I think Devontae Wyatt has done a solid job of kind of fortifying his grade. What do you guys think about Wyatt from Georgia?
Yeah, I really like Devontae Wyatt. I think he's impressed me this week more than he's impressed you, because I think that everything I liked about him at Georgia, the quickness, the disruptability in him, it's all been there this week. There's certain aspects of his game. I know Jordan Davis gets all the praise and all the hype.
I was about to say that.
But there's certain parts of his game that Devontae Wyatt does do better. I mean, I really do like Devontae Wyatt. I think he's someone that can be potentially a back end of the first guy. I touched on Perion Winfrey a little bit ago, but I haven't seen as much about Federi Mathis in the Senior Bowl yet. He did an interview, very passionate guy, but his Alabama film is fantastic. The way he's able to use his hands, they're just so violent, and he's so slippery for his size. I'm a really big fan of Mathis. Was a guy that I saw as like a maybe day 3 guy coming into the season, because he had like 1 sack to his name. And then coming into the Senior Bowl, I think he's a guy that could potentially push top of the second round. I really do like Mathis. I'm interested to see who you like in this defensive tackle class. I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back up to Wyatt. Wyatt actually surprised me in this, because he's a lot better with his hands than I thought he was gonna be. Mm-hmm. And again, Jordan Davis is always going to get all the praise, and everybody's going to have eyes on him for obvious reasons. Yeah. But him being that second guy, on that line that again, not a lot of people know about. Looking at him during the practices, I was very, very surprised at how well he is with his hands already, and just a little bit more teaching and growing. I think he could be a really good, solid guy for you guys.
Mm-hmm. And a couple more smaller school guys. One, Eric Johnson, the kid from Missouri State. He was actually at the Collegiate Bowl last week. Popped on tape, watched that game. I'm like, this kid is someone that needs to be invited to Mobile. Lo and behold, he gets the invite to Mobile next day, and now he's down there. And yeah, he's that guy that you can see his body type is just NFL. He's an NFL body player right now, but he's just like a piece of clay. You just kind of mold him into a starting defensive lineman. But Eric Johnson, curious what you guys have heard about him down there in Mobile. Another guy that I got to go back and do some digging on in terms of his tape is Travis Jones out of UConn, 6'4", 326, 34-inch arms. Again, we're looking for a 3 technique, probably even a 1 technique, depending on what happens with free agency and some of the starters we have currently on our roster. So Travis Jones from UConn, I got to go back do some work on, and as well as Eric Johnson. Curious, have you guys heard the buzz about any of these 2 players down there in Mobile?
There you
go. Yeah, so Travis Jones, honestly, like you said, you got to do a little bit more tape on him. I don't know a lot about him. So I have to do some research on him a little bit. But Kevin, you have any? Yeah,
so the first day of practice, we were watching in the stands, definitely a lot better conditions than it was today. Mm-hmm. And when they were doing the simulated 11v11 team drills, all I could keep saying was to people around me, wow, this kid from Connecticut is around the ball every single play. Mm-hmm. It seems like he was around to make a play every single snap, disruptive attack. Zion Johnson was phenomenal the past 2 days, the guard from Boston College, and he beat him pretty easily yesterday in 1v1s. Like, he's someone that I didn't know. I knew who he was, but UConn film's kind of inaccessible. Yeah. There's not really much out there for UConn, but a lot of people said he was really good, and he's showing a guy that could probably be in the second round with how good he's been. Like, he's been a superstar down in Mobile this year.
Like you said, Johnson's been getting a lot of buzz and things like that down here, and he beat him. So
everyone's been talking about Travis Jones down. Everyone's been raving about Jones down here,
Yeah, I agree. Zion actually, for me, last year, he played left tackle at Boston College, thought about coming into the draft. To me, it would have been a second-round pick at left tackle. Now he's moved into left guard this past year. And actually, they have him taking snaps at center down in Mobile. So, I mean, he's a guy that shows that versatility. He can probably play 2 or 3 positions along the line. So, yeah, for me,
One thing I'll say about this weekend at the Senior Bowl, they've been rotating a lot of offensive line at the center position. I think that they've been kind of light there. So you do see a lot of rotation there, and you'll see people they're trying them out, seeing who can work at the center position at this point. So I think it's a really good thing. So you get to see everybody's versatility down there.
They're a little bit more than there's literally only one true center down there in Mobile right now. There's one guy
that's trying to be nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys that have taken snaps before. Like, Strange told us that he's taken snaps before. Like, he started 2 games at center his sophomore year, I believe. But there's only one actual true center down here, and it's a weaker center class as a whole. Everyone kind of saw Linderbaum stock and went back to school. So it's very big on these guys like Johnson, like Memphis's Dylan Parham, who I think has been fantastic this week at center. It's very big on these guards to show, hey, I have this positional versatility. This is why you should draft me, so that you don't have to waste a roster spot on a backup center or a backup guard. You have me to play both positions. You can get another skill position player. You can get another pass rusher. Your offensive line is safe with me.
And just kind of touching, although sorry,
please go ahead.
No, I was just going. Speaking of skill position players, just want to go back real quick, just for our listeners, and asking Jacob and Jerome here. 2 other guys that really kind of caught my eye, guys, on the one-on-ones yesterday were Calvin Austin from Memphis. I know he's like 5'7", he's a little slot receiver.
My guy, yeah.
Just a really quick guy in the slot. I think this, you see how NFL offenses are utilizing these are quicker, shiftier receivers. I think he's got a real nice spot at the next level in the slot. Curious your thoughts on him. And then one more guy, Jalen Tolbert, kid from South Alabama. He looks the part, man. He just looks like he's an NFL receiver. A little raw around the edges, but he's got good size and solid straight line speed. Curious what you guys have heard about those 2 players.
Tolbert actually reminds me of last year's Juwan Jennings that's playing for.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that better than my Palmer comparison, honestly.
Yeah, he reminds me of him. He's one of those guys that is going to go out there and be very productive. Big body guy, can catch everything, have different catch radiuses, and he made some spectacular catches today in the rain. I mean, and I'll say this, it was raining really, really hard today, and it was really tough on the receivers today to catch the balls, and he was the one that was catching ridiculous stuff today. So that tells you a lot about his hands.
Yeah. To touch on your point about Calvin Austin, I don't think he's going to be the receiver for everybody. He's likely never going to be like a full-time quote-unquote starter, but he's a weapon, man. You get him out there in the slot. He's not just a gadget guy either. Like, he can run routes and get separation. His speed is fantastic. Another guy who's sort of similar that I want to bring up is Rutgers' Bo Melton. Everyone's been raving about him with his performance today. Not only were receivers struggling to catch the ball today in the rain, because of how wet the field was, their footwork looked a little bit sloppy. Not Melton's, though. Melton's footwork was just as good as it usually is, and he was killing dudes off the line of scrimmage. And once he has an opening, he has legitimate 4.4 speed. I've seen it before. I've seen him run track. He's got the speed, and he was very impressive today. He's a guy that didn't really get to showcase it at Rutgers because, well,
Rutgers.
Yeah, because Rutgers, he didn't really have a quarterback there, but he's someone that is really impressive with the ball in his hands, running routes. I've been a big fan of Bo for the past 2 years, and I'm really happy he's showing off at the Senior Bowl this year.
Yeah, Melton caught my eye when he spun around Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati, and then those 1-on-1. So I'm like, oh, all right, here we go. I haven't watched much Rutgers football. Maybe I should, but that's Melton's a guy definitely. Melton's a guy definitely on my list to break down.
Rutgers football is rough to watch. They were throwing like jump balls to Melton, and he's like 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah, very small.
But hey, he's got talent, and that's why we have the Senior Bowl. Senior Bowl is perfect. It's not just for the big guys like Jermaine Johnson, who we already know could play. It's for those smaller guys that can really show on an even playing field, or at least as even in the game of football that you can get, that, hey, I have talent. You guys should watch me, interview me, and hopefully draft me.
Ravi had a question about the Memphis guard, Dylan Parham. What do you guys seen about him?
That's your guy.
That is my guy. So I've been big on Dylan Parham since last year. Basically this year, when I learned that he was moving back to guard, because he was playing tackle at like 6'3", 285, which is that's not happening. He's definitely better suited going back on the inside, but versatility is nice. He's a really good mover. When he's on, has really good pad level, uses leverage really well. He came in the Senior Bowl at 313, I believe, and the moving ability is not gone. He's taking reps at center, which I wanted to see because I think he might even be better at center than guard. And he's out there reach blocking his butt off out there. And he's been one of the best interior linemen. Zion Johnson's gotten a lot of the buzz, deservedly so. But Dylan Parham has been fantastic this Senior Bowl, and he's capitalizing on a really good senior season. I'm a really big fan of his, and I'm hoping that him weighing in bigger and showing that he doesn't lose any athleticism with it, and I hope it really boosts his draft stock into maybe going into day 2 territory. He might still be a 4th rounder. I don't know, but I'm a big fan of Parham.
And in terms of the quarterbacks, I know we're not looking for quarterbacks, but some people, our listeners, might be interested in some of the quarterbacks. At least for me, to be honest with you, from what I've seen, it's been a pretty bad display in terms of the quarterback talent here. Although I'm a big Kenny Pickett fan, I'm a big Desmond Ridder fan. Of the ones that I saw there, and on tape at least, I think Malik Willis kind of confirmed to me his athletic ability, his twitch ability, and his arm. He's got pretty strong arm. He made a nice throw yesterday on 7-on-7s, kind of skipped the pressure, kind of off balance, threw a nice accurate ball downfield for about a 15-20 yard gain to a tight end. So Other than Malik Willis, has any other quarterbacks really stuck out for you guys?
Well, I'm gonna touch on Malik Willis real quick because he's all the buzz down here, not only for his athletic ability, but he's showing that he's a lot more accurate than a lot of people think. And I know earlier we were talking about, just how the rain affected a lot of stuff. The rain was really affecting these quarterbacks today. They was throwing like everywhere, and he was probably the only one that was on target today. So he got a lot of buzz. So that's good for him. As far as quarterbacks, like you said, my favorite quarterback right now is Kenny Pickett. It's probably not saying much, to be honest, but Kenny Pickett's my guy right now. I think he's got all the tools that I'm looking for in a quarterback as of right now. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about his hands, and I know he fumbled the last 2 days, so it's not really helping the case. I'm going to blame the rain today, but he did fumble the last 2 days. But as far as the quarterback, I think he's the best one right now. But the quarterback position haven't really shined that much down here other than Malik Willis. I think the most surprising one is Zeppi. He's doing pretty well. I think he had a really bad day today, so we'll see if maybe that was like a rain again, which is really not an excuse, especially in Chicago. If you're gonna get it, I know you're not looking for a quarterback, but if he was playing in like a place like Chicago, he gotta learn how to play in bad weather, whoever they are. So they all didn't do that well
Not
today.
everywhere's a dome,
Yeah.
Nothing. The first day from especially the national team was uninspiring to put it like politely. And you're like, all right, maybe first day jitters. We'll give them a little pass. Just come back day 2, do it better. Well, we're starting to run out of passes for these guys, and they were struggling. Of course he would. Justin Fields is really good. Of course. Justin Fields would be QB1 in most draft cycles, but that's regardless of the point. Malik Willis to me just shows so much more upside and ceiling than any other quarterback in this draft. And with most of these guys just not inspiring me that much, I think I'm leaning towards Willis right now. I wouldn't think of taking any of these quarterbacks supremely high, especially if I'm a team looking to really turn things around right now. But I'd rather have a guy who flames out in a couple years but has the potential to be great than end up with like Daniel Jones and you're trying to make it work for 4 or 5 years, or another quarterback like Mitch Trubisky who you're trying to make it work for years. I don't want that. Give me that higher upside in this. Most classes, Willis would be lower on my list, but he's the only one showing anything right now. And it's not even like he's killing everything. He's just showing his natural talent.
Yeah, and I'll say, to really answer your question, the second best quarterback down is probably Sam Howell. And that's not saying much, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not a big Sam Howell guy. I'm not. I watched North Carolina tape, and I just too many ifs for me about that kid. But
the biggest flaw in Sam Howell's game isn't able to be shown right now. We know he has natural arm talent. We know he can make some accurate throws. My biggest thing about him is his play under pressure.
Right.
These quarterbacks can't be hit right now.
Yeah, his play.
No one can get hit right now, so he's not under pressure. So maybe the game will show it more, but they're not really trying to destroy each other like a real game in this.
I will say 2 quarterbacks got hit yesterday, though, and the coach was not happy.
Ritter didn't get hit. Penning threw Isaiah Thomas into him. He literally threw him into Ritter and nearly cut him in half. It was rough, but Sam Howell's probably been the second best quarterback here.
Well, got a couple of questions in the chat about linebackers. We'll start with Ravi's Chad Numa.
We had our podcast earlier, and we were just raving about this guy. He's probably the best one out. Now, again, like we said earlier, it's hard to kind of judge linebackers right at this point because they can't hit anybody. So that really takes a lot out of it. But what I said earlier was that, and this is my guy coming in, Uma. I think that he has the best reaction time and reactionary moves as soon as he see it, he's in the area every time. So and that's good for a linebacker. Now I need to see all that get put together in a game where he can actually hit. I want to see him get off of blocks a little bit more and things like that. But like as far as being reactionary and being the first person around the ball, he's the guy.
Yeah, he's stood out. He's stood out head and shoulders above the other linebackers here. He's been extremely good. His pursuit angles are great. He's someone I was very high on coming into this event, and he's just confirmed it. He's a very good football player. Mm-hmm. He's just a really good player.
And what about Mike Rose, the linebacker from Iowa State? Has he flashed at all?
He hasn't played. He's one of like 10 players.
There's a lot of players that opted out.
Yeah,
last minute too.
Yeah, it's a shame. He was someone I really did want to see because he has accolades to his name. I don't know if he got it this year, but last year I'm pretty sure he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. So this would have been big to see if he could stand up to the rest. I don't know though. He didn't play though.
Go ahead, Danny.
For me, I don't want to flip it off to people who are disappointed, but I'm going to do that. So, we were talking about guys who popped, or guys who so far have done a good job in terms of raising their stock. A couple guys have really kind of surprised me in terms of how bad they've looked so far. Again, there's a couple more practices, or at least one more practice left, and then obviously the game. But Ed Ingram, the guard from LSU, really has, in my opinion, has looked bad. It just been tossed around like a rag doll. And then a guy that got first round buzz coming into the Senior Bowl, Bernard Raymond from Central Michigan, for me hasn't looked like he looked like he's a little nervous, maybe feels a little out of place. I'm not sure. Sometimes we see that with the Senior Bowl with these lower school guys coming up, and then now next thing you know, a day or two, a couple of practices, and then they kick it into high gear. Now they get a little more confidence. What do you guys think about those two players? And then the corner from Georgia, Darian Kendrick, also I think got really torched in the one-on-ones as well. So he was a guy that I know had some off-the-field issues last year coming into Georgia, but I think he kind of really reclaimed his his name there and showed that he's first-round ability. But again, he's kind of looked bad this weekend as well so far. So any of those guys kind of match your guys that have disappointed so far? If not, then who else do you have in terms of guys that really haven't met your expectations?
So I have a guy, we talked about this in our podcast earlier as well, that I'm disappointed in because I was talking to him very highly. But this is a very deep tight end class or tight end group.
I still disagree with this one. I disagree with this one still, but go ahead.
I'm going to say Jake Ferguson. Simply because, most people are saying that he's just a blocking tight end. And I was raving about his catching ability, and he kind of disappointed me so far with his catching ability so far. So for me, I mean, a little bit more personal, but Jake Ferguson is a guy that I was like, man, he's a really good tight end. I'm telling you guys, he catch, and he haven't been showing it in these games, making me look bad. How about you, Jacob?
Kendrick's a disappointing one. Yeah, he's kind of been pedestrian down there, and he's someone that was getting first round buzz. I would probably agree. Raymond, I think is a very interesting one because I've seen the first round hype to him. I don't think I've agreed with it from what I've seen on tape. I think that we're projecting him a bit not too much, but like a bit too early, and maybe this kind of week will halt the break. I don't think he's been bad, but he hasn't dominated the way that you would hope he would. He hasn't dominated the same way that a guy like Penning has some snaps that like Johnson has on the inside. He hasn't been awful. He hasn't looked like he's been out of place or like he doesn't deserve to be here, but like he hasn't really taken that extra step. If you were watching him for the first time, you wouldn't think, oh, this is a guy that's getting top 15 in some cases. Right. This is like a solid day 2 guy, which may be more fair for him until like the combine. I don't think he's a bad player. I just think that we're projecting his upside a bit too early, because I've seen like the Lane Johnson comparisons. I get it. He's a really good athlete, same size, but he's not quite there yet. And I hope he can be. That's the thing. I hope everyone at this Senior Bowl goes on to be fantastic players.
Oh, yeah.
I really do. I hope everyone that gets drafted turns out to be a fantastic player. And everyone that's undrafted that finds a team. But, I just don't know if I'm ready to say future superstar tackle that's going to hold you down for 10 years and make all pros yet. We'll see, though.
Yeah, with Raymond, and the reason he's getting that Lane Johnson comp is because of his background. He's an athletic kid, former basketball player. He was a tight end actually at Central Michigan. Got flipped over to the offensive line for about a year and a half now. So he's still a developmental kid, but just the fact that he was getting, like you said, that first round buzz, and from what I was expecting to see at the practices, it just seems like he's a little bit out of place. Again, a lot of times these guys take a day, a practice or two to kind of get in the rhythm, get the feel for everything, and maybe they'll come out tomorrow and shine and then have a great game. But I'm just saying that's one guy for me that's kind of I came in with high expectations, and I think he's kind of lowered them a little bit for me. But hey, a heck of an athlete, a guy's like 6'6", 300 some pounds. Like I said, former basketball player, was a tight end, got converted to left tackle, and is being considered a first round pick. So you can't knock him. But I'm just saying, like, hopefully he continues to get better and just kind of shows his athletic ability next couple of days here.
Jacob, Jerome, I want to squeeze one more question in from the chat because this player is getting a lot of buzz here. Channing Tindall from Georgia. What do you guys? What have you seen of him?
I like him. He's one of the sleeper linebackers. I kind of hope that slides to my Eagles, as you see right here. I mean, you guys, already know how Roseman is with his linebackers. You don't like to take first rounders. He might be somebody that slides into the late first round, depending on how it looks down there. And I'm desperately hoping if we don't get a linebacker in the first round, I hope he's our second round linebacker. And it's making me nervous because he's looking better and better. I'm just like, watch, he's gonna be in the first round, and you know how he is. He's not gonna grab one. So that's one of the guys that I'm enjoying watching him though.
I like Tyndall. I think I might like Quay Walker better. I'm a little upset that Walker's not playing down here because Walker really impressed me. All the Georgia players are good. That's the thing. There's all that in the front seven at least. They're all really good. They all run. Like I know it's a silly, simple thing to say, but a lot of players don't hustle out there. Yeah. All 11 guys on the field for Georgia run to the ball. It's a very big cultural thing, and it's something that I would want on my team. I want those type of guys on my team.
Yeah, there's a reason why that defense was that good. I mean, even the smaller, like the lesser guys, lesser guys are like really good. So, yeah, man, it's showing, especially now that they're kind of separated from each other and off that defense, they're starting to shine, really.
And even their offensive players, I think the kid Slayer who played for them.
Yeah.
He's been in terms of showing off his athletic ability. They have him pulling and trapping on some of the counter plays, and he those guys who's like 300 some pounds, 30 some pounds, very nimble on his feet, very athletic. So I think if you're looking for an athletic guard, the Bears will be probably because they're probably going, they're going to continue with this zone scheme that they have utilized the last couple of years. So I think guys like that for our listeners, Slayer from Georgia, an interior lineman could be an option in later rounds there as well.
100%. I agree 100%. He's a guy you can use all around the line too. Fantastic player. I really like him. He showed great things in the national championship. There were some reps he had against Aiden Hutchinson where honestly he made Aiden Hutchinson look like nothing, man. He's really good. And just watching him in the movement, watching him in drills, he just moves really good. Very, very sound player. I'm a big fan of him.
I'm a Michigan fan, and I can attest to that game. I don't want to talk about it, though.
How are you a Michigan fan when you live in Philadelphia?
I agree. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
What happened at Penn State? Pitt? Nothing?
I think Penn State's the reason why I became a Michigan fan, but
that's great. Hey guys, tell us a little bit about your website, Inside the Hashes. What is it that you guys do there? It's a beautiful site with tons of information. Let our followers know what's going on at InsideTheHashes.com.
Well, Inside the Hashes, we are the apex of football, so we cover all three phases of football. high school, college, and pro football. We got everything you need in football related. We do podcast interviews, blogging. We do gaming. We got all that on there. Anything you want, we have it on there. Football wise, we interview over 500 players. A lot of them NFL players. We got first round picks that we interview. We got Dawson Knox, Jordan Love, Spencer Brown, a lot of those guys, Jamie Davis, as you see right there. So we do a lot of great stuff with football content. We give you football news, we give you fantasy tips, all that. So Inside the Hatches is the place to go. We're an up and coming company, so hope you guys look us up. We come to Senior Bowl each year that we've been a company. So we keep getting growing, and we just looking for all football fans to come in and enjoy some football and really get to learn and understand who these players are, not only just as players, but as people as well, and get to know them as with their personality and things like that. So
yeah.
Well, Danny and I are envious that you guys are down in Mobile and we're not out there with you. I know that Jacob is going to go out and party and check out the bar scenes while you're going to go do some editing and stay up on.
I'm going to be editing.
I'll be drinking big glasses of water tonight, man. I gotta stay sharp. Listen, I gotta stay sharp. We're getting up at like 6:30 every morning.
Yeah,
Listen,
they have something I feel like they have something every hour down here.
Man, I'm here. We're down here to have fun, and this is all great fun time. But I'm here to work. I took a week off of school to come work and interview as many players as I can. Get as much content out, network as much as I can. This is very important to me. Yeah. So I take it as seriously as I can. I know you do too.
You guys sound way too responsible for me, man.
They sound like us because when we're in Mobile, I'm after the practices. I go back to the room. I'm breaking down tape. Aldo, he goes out for massages. Yeah, Aldo's gone for 2-3 hours for massages, guys. So that's what happens. Same thing here.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing. Danny and I will go out to dinner and the waitresses are all staring at him. He's got his rippling muscles and stuff. And so Danny is a little shy. So I start talking on his behalf, and
Danny sounds like somebody I need to be hanging out with.
That's not true.
Yeah, there you go.
But listen, guys, thanks so much for spending some time with us. Get to work and
we got to do it again soon.
We'd love to do it again soon. So maybe after the Senior Bowl, we'll be in touch and we'll set up.
Make sure y'all hitting that like button for these guys. These guys are incredible, man. Hit that like button for these guys, for real.
Cool, man. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, brother.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Danny, I want to get your thoughts on what is going on with the Chicago Bears. They've announced a number of coaching changes today. Over at the website, it was announced that the Bears have hired Williams. What's his first name? Alan Williams as the defensive coordinator, and Dave Borgonzi as the linebackers coach. Both of those guys were with Eberflus at Indianapolis. What do you know about these guys? I've heard a lot of good things about Berganzi, but I really don't know Williams very well.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I like about the hires that Eberflus has made so far, he's bringing in guys that have NFL experience, like multi-year NFL experience. Alan Williams has been in the NFL coaching for 20 years, and that's something that a lot of people don't know. He's been a defensive coordinator before with the Vikings for 2 seasons under Leslie Frazier, so he's got that experience. So that's the thing I do like. Like you mentioned, they were both on the staff with the Colts. It sounds like the Colts are basically giving their new defensive coordinator, whoever it's going to be, kind of carte blanche on the coaching staff, and so they're letting Eberflus take a lot of his assistants with them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? We don't know, but I think there's another rumored assistant going to come with him. I believe I forgot his name right now, but I think he's a cornerback coach. That might also be a guy that they might bring in here as well. But yeah, I mean. Williams, 20 years experience. Borganzi's been in the NFL for 11 years, coaching linebackers. They also hired Tyke Tolbert from the Giants. He's going to be the wide receiver / passing game coordinator. He's a guy that's got 19 years of NFL coaching experience. So, I like these moves in terms of these guys with experience, because the last thing you want to do is bring in guys 1 or 2 year, or you bring them from college in terms of, guys that don't really have that NFL pedigree and that experience that can kind of relate and talk and coach up these NFL players. So those are the positives about these guys. Also, Chris Morgan is an offensive line coach now. He was with the Steelers last year. Previously, he was with the Falcons, and that's something that kind of leads back to what we were talking about here with the guards and with the offensive linemen in general. Sounds like with the hiring of Morgan, the Bears are going to keep this wide zone blocking scheme that they've been using the last couple of years. So I think with Morgan, because obviously the 5 years he spent with the Atlanta Falcons was under Kyle Shanahan, which is obviously the system they're going to be using. And I assume that means that Getsy, the offensive coordinator, will be bringing in some of that McVay / LaFleur / Shanahan kind of offensive system as well. So the one positive thing about Getsy that I've heard so far is that he is a kind of a coach that's not going to say, all right, this is my system and this is how you're going to play in my system. He's going to kind of sit down and kind of, he's got an idea of what he wants to run, but he also is going to take the strengths of Justin Fields and kind of hopefully incorporate that into a system and kind of have a little bit of a mix match here and there.
Yeah, that was one of the highlights of listening to interviews with Ryan Poles, that he talked about Justin Fields and saying, accentuate what he does best and work on where he needs help and surround him, of course, with the weapons that he needs to excel and pass blocking offensive linemen. So that is great news. Danny, you've been a great big help on this first episode of BSing. We're going to do this again. This is not going to be a weekly show. This is just going to be every once in a while when I feel like talking to certain people, and I'm going to be relying on you often. Plus, of course, the Draft on Tap will resume a week from tomorrow. You and Neil will start doing your first scouting evaluations, and we'll talk in detail about both the Shrine Game and the Senior Bowl. So I'm really looking forward to that a week from tomorrow.
And the Collegiate Bowl. I watched the Collegiate Bowl as well. So there's some players from there I caught as well. And one of them was Eric Johnson, this kid from Missouri State, who caught my eye in the game. And next thing you know, he now has been he's playing now at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. So he got 5 scouts there as well.
Fantastic. Danny, you're the man. Get back to watching tape, brother.
Yep, I'm going to go back to watching tape now.
Okay, take care. Talk to you later. And I got to tell you, last week I asked Greg Gabriel, when do you want to do another show? This was like on Thursday. We did a show Thursday. He goes, why don't we do it a week from that day, which is Thursday, because I'm sure the Bears will have hired a number of coaches and I can share my thoughts about them. So tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central, it'll be Greg Gabriel and myself. I'll be doing the listening as he's going to share his thoughts on the coaching staff for the Chicago Bears as it looks now. Now, I want to switch gears here and move to the second portion of our show, and that is the interview I did earlier today with Patrick Finley and JJ Stankevitz. And it was great talking to these guys. Patrick was actually down at the Senior Bowl and got in out of the rain, so he was thankful to squeeze out 30 minutes to talk. And JJ, of course, if you don't know JJ, you should know him. He's writing for the Colts now, but he did a lot of great work when he was here at NBC Sports Chicago. So let's go to that interview, and then we'll be back live in about 25 minutes. And as promised, with me is Patrick Finley of the Chicago Sun-Times and the host of Hallis Intrigue podcast and former NBC Sports Chicago reporter JJ Stankevitz, who is now over at Colts.com. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Patrick, I know that you're down at the Senior Bowl and you're probably happy to get in out of the rain, right?
Not that watching an all-star game practice in the rain is bad, but yeah, sitting in the rental car minivan is an upgrade right now.
Gentlemen, I want to talk about the Chicago Bears, but first I'd like to spend a few minutes just talking about sports journalism in general. One of the reasons the topic appeals to me so much is I had some years working at the CBS O&O here in Chicago and got to do a lot of sports-related stories and got a really good understanding about sports journalism. And I interact with a lot of fans who just don't get what your roles are. And JJ, you have you come from a sports journalism background, but now you're writing for Colts.com. Mm-hmm. So are you a sports journalist, or are you presenting a team's point of view on things?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say just in general for team writers, it varies by the team, what the expectations are. Here in Indy, I mean, look, I worked for NBC Sports Chicago for 10 years. I still consider myself a sports journalist. And the thing that I really like about working for the Colts is that if things go bad, like they did at the end of the season for us, we don't shy away from that. It's not like I'm going and writing a column like I would have done at NBC Sports Chicago, offering my opinion on things, but it is very much hey, we have to present what happened and what the facts are. And, again, if you're looking for a column ripping the team, you're not coming to Colts.com. But if you're looking for what happened and how it happened, you can find that on our website, just like you could find it on, the Indy Star, AP website, whatever it may be. So it's definitely been a different challenge for me professionally, but it's one that I've really enjoyed. And I think like the Colts are just a really good team to work with and work for. So I also probably I'm a little bit biased in that sense that getting to work for this team has been awesome for the last year, and getting to work with the people I get to work with on a daily basis here in Indianapolis has been great. So I really, it has never felt like there's been something I've wanted to write that I haven't been able to write. I'll just, kind of put a bow on it that way.
Yeah, and watching the latest iteration of Hard Knocks really presented a great look at that organization and how well it's run, and the great personalities that you cover. Patrick, what about yourself? Can you be a fan of the team that you're covering?
No, I think is the short answer. I don't have a lot of those complicated feelings with the Bears because, and JJ can speak to this. JJ, how many people who cover the Bears grew up in the greater Chicagoland area? 85, 90?
Everyone but you and Biggs and it might just be you and Biggs.
Yeah, it's a short list, whatever it is. And,
right.
and the downside to that is I don't have, at least when I got here, I didn't have the institutional knowledge of just the memories you have growing up and learning about the team kind of as you grow old with, some of these players and with some of these coaches. The upshot of it, though, is that I don't have a complicated relationship with the team. If you asked me to cover the San Diego Padres, that'd be a different story. So I don't think you can be a fan, but I think you need an appreciation for what makes a team special in your community and also in the league. Just because you can't be a quote unquote fan doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge good things they do, special players you see, and what they mean to people. I mean, all I have to do is walk up and down the block that I live on to know how important the Bears are to a lot of Chicagoans. And you can't dismiss that out of hand. You can't let it affect your coverage, but you need to be aware of what they mean to people, even if you're not a fan yourself.
Here's what I'll just kind of add to that, because I'm now in this position where I work for the team and I have an interest in the team winning, but I still, I think it's the emotion of it. You have to take the emotion of being a fan out of it, because that will negatively impact your coverage. If you are elated after a win and you're going up to players and high-fiving them, they're not going to respect you for that. But the flip side is after a bad loss, you're not going in there and being like, hey, like what the F happened? You have to be professional about it. And I learned that when I started in Chicago covering the White Sox for NBC Sports Chicago. I grew up a diehard White Sox fan. And like I got in the clubhouse, and the first couple times I was in there, I was like, all right. Went and donated all my jerseys to Goodwill and shirts to Goodwill. I own no piece of White Sox apparel from like 2012 through 2016 because it was too close to it. And I had to just like get rid of that. But to Pat's point too, while you can't, it's not good to be a fan of the team you're covering, you have to be a fan of something. Because that's something I struggled with a lot when I was starting off in the business, is that when I got rid of the White Sox, I kind of stopped being a fan of like any team. And I lost that emotion of being a fan, of like what that's like, of being pissed off when your team loses, or like being jacked up when your team wins. So like when I, moved here, I made a conscious decision, like I'm going to be a White Sox fan again, just like Pat's a Padres fan. And I'm going to be irrational and annoying on Twitter about it because I need to like remember what that's like, because it's really hard to do this job without having an appreciation for that.
Well, and we all do what we do because we like sports. And
right.
And we, watching a game, even on TV, watching a game on TV with sports writers in a hotel lobby or whatever is fantastic. It's great entertainment because, nobody's throwing a spike in their drink on the ground when something bad happens, but we're all invested in a way that I don't know that your average fan is. I'll say this: when Matt Eberflus started his press conference the other day, and he made a joke about how when they introduced him that nobody cheered. I don't know a single reputable sports writer that claps when a coach gets introduced. I know I never have. And I think he was joking, but I think that needs to be made clear that it's not like he's walking into some sort of pit of vipers because we didn't give him a golf clap when he sat down in the press conference.
And I know you guys have heard this probably a million times. There's a lot of criticism towards sports journalists, sports reporters for not asking the tough question. And that comes from passionate fans who want you guys to say, hey, why the F didn't you do this? Or why did you F and throw this pass and so forth? How do you respond to that kind of criticism where, you guys are essentially the mouthpiece for fans, or at least delivering sports news to fans? How do you respond to that criticism about, why didn't you ask these questions? Or in a press conference, why didn't you all gang up and tackle the coach and ask him questions?
Well, I think the pandemic has made that criticism even louder because everybody gets to follow every press conference live from home. And quite frankly, fans all of a sudden think that they know how we do our job, or they know how we should do our job better. And in most cases, they're wrong. The question you have to ask yourself as a reporter is, am I trying to get an answer or am I trying to get a reaction? Mm-hmm. And if you want a reaction from the head coach, you can sit there and say, you moron, why didn't you throw the ball? Or you can sit there and say, what was your rationale in not throwing the ball? And I realize that asking something in a professional manner isn't what fans want to hear, but they're fans, they're fanatics. That's what makes them them. But we need to get to the answer. We don't need to engage in a kind of behavior that I think would be inappropriate from a journalism standpoint. JJ, does that make sense?
Yes, getting an answer or a reaction is the perfect way to put it. And the other thing, fans will often say, why didn't you ask this question? Why didn't you ask it this way? But then think about if you, that fan, ran into Matt Nagy on the street. Are you going to walk up to him and be like, Matt, like, what the hell are you doing? You suck. You're going to walk up and probably not say that because he's a human being who is right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And you don't do that to human beings who are right in front of you unless you are a jerk. From a professional standpoint, though, there is that delicate line of asking a tough question, but asking it in a manner that, like Pat said, will give you an answer. The best at doing it, by the way, is Mark Potash. Because Potsy goes into it, and like half the time he doesn't realize that he's asking a really hard question. He just kind of like, I have this thought. And like, but the way that he asks those questions, that's very direct. I always admired how he could do that instead of kind of sometimes tiptoeing around it or using a setup. He would be very direct about it, but it was never in a way that's unprofessional. It's, hey, I want an answer to this question. What's the answer?
Yeah. And the people who are the best at it, and Potsy is among the best I've ever seen at it, truly do not care what people think about them or about their bedside manner. But, there are some people who act that way and then are jerks. And then there's Potsy, who does not care whether or how the question comes off, but still treats the exchange with the respect that it requires. And part of it too, JJ said this point, it's not just Matt Nagy walking down the street and you have a chance to call him a jerk or not call him a jerk. It's Matt Nagy. It's you seeing Matt Nagy at at the Starbucks every morning. I mean, we see these coaches every day, every work day we have for 6 months. You need to have a relationship with them that is not based on you calling them a name. and go ahead.
It has to be respectful.
Yeah.
Like for you to ask a hard question and get an answer for it, there has to be some level of respect between you, the person asking the question, and the person answering the question. And that's based on having a relationship with them professionally. It's not like, you need to be drinking buddies with these guys, but there needs to be a respect there of, hey, I respect your job, from the coach to the reporter, and the reporter, I respect your knowledge of this issue.
Yeah. Well, and let's make it clear, we are not drinking buddies with these guys. I mean, there's it's one thing to say hello when you see them in a social setting and to do your job and try and get information. But, I don't know any self-respecting reporter in Chicago that thinks that they're friends with the people that they covered. You're not. You're there to do a job, and if you can do it pleasantly and respectfully, I think that's helpful, and I think that helps you get answers rather than reactions. But it's not. I mean, none of us are in the business we're in to make friends with guys who have a whistle around their neck. That's just not why we cover sports.
Final question on this topic, but you guys are friends with each other, the sports writers and sports broadcasters community. You guys, I'm assuming, are friendly towards each other, but are in competition. You want to, Patrick, I'm sure you want to scoop the competitors down the street on stories, and JJ, you probably want to report things before it gets out from the broadcast media. How does that energy work amongst yourself? Because one of the complaints that I hear about sports media is, well, why didn't they coordinate their questions at press conferences? And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. These guys are all working for independent agencies. They're not going to say, okay, you ask this and then I'll follow up with this and so forth. So I'm interested in that whole dynamic, guys.
Pat, what was JD's rule whenever we would go out?
What, we don't talk about work? That one?
Good rule.
Yeah, JD. I mean, yeah, JD had a better perspective on this than most. I think I would say that you try, just kind of like your exchanges with coaches, is you try and be polite and you try and be pleasant, and that doesn't mean that you're out there to make friends. Previous incarnations of Bears beat writers have had far more volatile relationships than I've seen in the 8.5 years that I've been here. I mean, you hear stories about people threatening to fight each other and stuff like that. I've never done that with anybody who I compete with. And I don't think, JJ, unless you're holding out on me, I don't think you have either.
I don't know. Chris Emma wants to,
that'd be a good
match. That's not true. But I mean, like those road trips, I kind of, laughed about, like, JD's rules, you don't talk about work, but like those road trips, we would all go out together. And like, Pat, you and I, we went to that Padres Rockies game before the Broncos game in 2019. Like I remember going to a Northwestern Maryland game with like you and Fishbane, where we showed up there, realized that the Terp Stadium sold beer. And now I have a Maryland Terrapins keychain bottle opener. We all have the same shared experience of being on the road, being beat writers of the Chicago Bears. But I'm not sitting there being like, I'm planning the story. Like, what do you think? Or like, hey, like, what was your conversation? What was that one-on-one conversation you had with Allen Robinson? Like we're not doing that because there is that respect for the boundaries of competitiveness.
Yeah. And I think that one of the, not to bring Jeff Dickerson's name up again, but one of the things that made Jeff special was that when we were on the road together, a lot of times especially in my experience, once you have kids, you miss your family, and sometimes you are a little bummed to be, in the middle of wherever, getting ready to go do something. And JD bringing people together gave you that sense of community. I think it's a very human nature, whether you're in Bourbonnais or whether you're on the road covering a road game, to want to make that connection with people. And let's face it, we have weird hours. We work nights and weekends. We miss weddings and funerals. And there aren't a lot of people who have that shared experience, but other writers do. And I think we bond around that far more so than the subject matter. I mean, JD was right. Like, the less you talk about work, the better.
Yep. I do not miss microphone in front of a fire on a Sunday morning after being out Saturday night. Okay, gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about the Chicago Bears. Patrick, I'd like to get your impressions of Ryan Poles, the new general manager of the team.
I give him an incomplete right now. I mean, in the press conference and a little bit of a side session that we had with him the other day, he seemed like a friendly, affable, motivated guy. He's a former offensive lineman, which makes him good people in my book. What is he going to do? We'll see. One of the really interesting things about the Bears' history of making hires, whether it's a coach or GM, is they tend to hire people who have never done it before. John Fox in the Super Bowl era, John Fox is the only coach the Bears have ever hired who'd ever been a coach before. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they'd ever hired a GM before, because that's just not the way the NFL works. So there's a wait and see approach on all of these guys. And the fact that Poles spent 13 years with the Chiefs and Ryan Pace spent 14 years with the Saints, and the fact that they both went to Super Bowls within 5 years of taking the Bears job, and the fact that neither of them had ever had the experience of being at the top, I think it's easy to draw parallels between the two. But we'll see. We'll see if he can do better than Pace did.
JJ, you started writing for Colts.com. I think it was back in March of last year. And so you had a lot of access to the Bears' new new head coach. What are your thoughts on Matt Eberflus?
Well, first of all, I knew of him in 2007 when I was a freshman at Pat and I's alma mater, University of Missouri, where Matt Eberflus was the defensive coordinator. So I've known about Flus and followed his career for quite some time, but like getting to see it up close, it was so cool how players bought into it. And I know there was a lot of eye rolling in Chicago about that hits mentality and all, whatever that might be. But like, I watched this defense play for 17 games this year. Like, those dudes bought in. There was no lack of energy or hustle. There were not a lot of penalties, and they took the ball away more than every team in the NFL but the Dallas Cowboys. So that mentality really did permeate this team. And like, I saw it with like Darius Leonard, man, like he was playing on one ankle for like more than half the year. Like he would come into his interview on Thursday. We would ask him, Darius, how's your ankle? And he would just be like, well, it's attached. And you could tell that it was impacting the things he would normally do. And yet Darius Leonard finished this year with 8 forced fumbles and 4 interceptions, something no player has done in NFL history. And his effort never once fell off despite working through that injury. And like that's the kind of buy-in that Matt Eberflus got from this team. And hey, if it was good enough for Darius Leonard, who's one of the best linebackers in the NFL, DeForest Buckner, one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL, Kenny Moore II, for my money, the best slot cornerback in the NFL. If it's good enough for those guys, why can't it be good enough for the Chicago Bears?
And JJ, when I do shows here, a lot of people in the chat room put up stats of the Colts defense. Well, they were worse than the Bears in this and worse than the Bears. And then you look elsewhere, you see stats that are really commendable of the work that Eberflus did with that defense. So I always think that the best way to evaluate a defense is what you see on tape and what you see with your own eyes. So, JJ, what have you seen with your own eyes about this defense that he coached?
It's a defense that keeps everything in front of it. There are a lot of folks here in Indianapolis who are frustrated with some of the easy completions that this defense allowed, but they didn't allow a lot of explosive plays, and they turned the ball over a ton. And that is a recipe for a winning defense. So, yes, you might see some softer coverages just to make sure those explosive plays aren't happening. But like, that's happening all over the NFL. I mean, that is it's not like Matt Eberflus is not on the Vic Fangio tree, but the Vic Fangio principle of playing defense is to not allow explosive plays with those 2 high safeties and to keep everything in front of you. That's where it starts. And Matt Eberflus, it's the same thing. It's a different way of going about it, but it's the same overarching philosophy that, a lot of teams around the NFL have right now. And I think, the Colts pass rush needed to be better this year. When you look at some of the sack numbers, the pressure numbers, they were not where they needed to be. And Matt Eberflus did not blitz a whole lot. I think the Colts are third lowest in blitz rate this year, but his philosophy really is, hey, we want to hit home with 4 and play really good coverage in the back end with those 7 guys. And there were some different ways that Matt Eberflus designed blitzes or simulated pressures or stuff like that. But when you watch the tape of this defense, though, you see a really well-coached team where players know where they're supposed to be. They know what their assignment is. There's great communication, between players on the field. And then they're fast and physical. They like, it's this cliche to say, oh, we were flying around out there, but like this Colts defense does that. They really fly to the football. They rally to the ball, and they go for strip attempts an awful lot too. And a lot of times it works.
Well, JJ, I know there are people who think that takeaways are lucky, and I think you and I would both agree that there is an element of luck in it for sure. But what is it? I think I looked it up. I think over the last 4 years, which would be Eberflus's whole tenure there, I think they're second or third in the NFL in takeaways. Like this isn't a 1 year thing. This is what they preach, including the peanut punch, right?
Yeah, it's they're top 10. The Colts were top 10 in takeaways each of Eberflus's 4 years in Indianapolis, so it's just really, really hard to do. Like you mentioned, Pat, there is some luck involved in that, but a lot of it is coaching, and it also helps to have a guy in Darius Leonard who is the best at punching the ball out since Peanut Tillman played. And it was funny, Darius, he got so many questions about the peanut punch this year because, he had 8 forced fumbles. It was crazy. And finally, he was just like, guys, like, can we call it the Maniac Knockout? Like, I'm doing it on my own here. Like, let's go with the Maniac Knockout. Like, no disrespect to Peanut Tillman, but like, I'm the one doing it. I'm not doing the peanut punch. I'm doing the Maniac Knockout, which he, that was just kind of a little funny aside on that. But like, they take it away.
JJ, you like puns more than anybody I've ever met in my life. What would you call it if you had to come up with a name for Leonard and how he got the ball out? I'm sure you've thought about this.
Oh man, you actually kind of put me on the spot right there.
I did.
You know what? I'll get you one by the end of this.
Yeah, or you can text me later. The listeners
if not, I'll put it on the text thread that we have, just so Kevin Fishbane can throw his phone into the lake.
I love it. Patrick, I'm prone to having a panic attack from time to time, and when I see with this Chicago Bears roster and the amount of free agents that they have, and the big hole that Poles and Eberflus have to climb out of, the mess. I'll just say it, the mess I think that Ryan Pace left these two guys. Do you see that the same way, that this is going to be, a rebuild? I was actually kind of disappointed when he said, I think we can be competitive right away. I see this as a 2 or 3 year rebuild if they're going to do it right, in my mind. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals are destroying all kinds of narratives. They didn't draft the offensive lineman. They drafted their quarterback in 2 years, and 2 years into the quarterback's tenure, he's in the Super Bowl and so forth. Is there reason here to be optimistic?
I think if you look at the NFC North, that should give you reason for optimism. That should give you a reason to try. I mean, there's a world in which Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back to the Packers. The Vikings have a first-year head coach and general manager, and the Lions remain the Lions. So, if getting into the playoffs is as easy as winning your division, the division may be, if Rodgers leaves and if Devontae Adams leaves, may be winnable, or it may be open to everybody for the first time in 30 years, something like that. I think that's motivation. I don't know that they need to tear this thing down to the studs. You're right in that it was a mess by the time Pace left, and it was a mess because they were in a mad dash to try to win right away to keep everybody's jobs.
Right.
And in some cases that was at the expense of doing the more prudent long-term thing. Looking at what they have, if Justin Fields figures it out, which is a giant if and probably its own show. But if he can be the quarterback that they hope he can be, if you've got Justin Fields, if you've got Khalil Mack, you've got Robert Quinn, you've got Roquan Smith, I mean, all of a sudden you have, a passer and guys who can rush the passer. And Roquan Smith may be the best cover linebacker in football, and Jalen Johnson, who's really, really good, I think. I think this is my long-winded way of saying, I think there's a formula for them to be competitive this year. The other thing too is, they don't have a first-round pick this year. And I don't know what sort of trade Ryan Poles could make that would get him a first-round pick, quite honestly. So, it's hard to rebuild if you're not drafted in the first round. And I don't think the Bears will go in that direction.
Guys, you've been very kind with your time, and I know you've got work to do. Patrick, what can we look forward to over at suntimes.com? I know you're down in Mobile. Are you doing a feature on a player or just providing some overall observations?
A little bit of everything. Talked to a couple of coaches today, and keeping an eye on really the transformative stuff that's going on in the league right now, whether it's the Brian Flores lawsuit. There's a chance Jim Harbaugh, as we sit here right now, ends up the coach of the Vikings. Those are some pretty major developments in the NFL. So talking to people about that, the Sun-Times, whether it's me, Jason Leisure, or Mark Potash, we're going to have you covered on all of the Bears coaching news. It doesn't stop as much as we would love for it to have stopped by now. It does not stop. They still need a defensive coordinator, a special teams coordinator, and a whole mess of position coaches. So I'll look for them to get that taken care of in the next week, and we'll tell you all about it when they do.
Great. It's a great team over at the Sun-Times that covers the Bears. JJ, what are you working on? What can we look forward to seeing over at Colts.com?
Well, if you're interested in how the Colts are going to replace Matt Eberflus, working on getting some stuff ready for whenever we name our new defensive coordinator. And we also are going to need a slew of position coaches because a bunch of those guys are following Matt Eberflus to Chicago. So, Patrick, just because you're getting work done in Chicago on these guys means I have to get work done finding out who the next coaches are going to be replacing some of the guys like Alan Williams and Dave Borgonzi. So plenty busy over here. And I'm also working on a story. This is kind of more of a feature-y type thing, I guess. So Frank Reich, he and his wife Linda have a foundation that is aimed to combat child sex crimes. It's a really awful subject to discuss, but they have a really, really powerful foundation that they have here in Indianapolis. And I'm doing a story on that next week because they're part of the Anti-Human Trafficking Alliance that is going to be presenting some stuff at the Super Bowl next week.
Great stuff, gentlemen. Thank you very much for setting aside some time and get back to work. All right. That was fun talking to those two gentlemen, JJ Stankevitz and Patrick Finley. I've always had a huge interest in sports journalism. Since I was a kid, I would run down to the neighborhood store and there was 4 newspapers in Chicago at the time. I would buy all 4 of them and start with the sports section and read the columns and read the same reports from different perspectives from the sports writers. Just loved sports journalism. And then, I'd get to the front of the newspaper eventually, but it was primarily for sports because I was a voracious reader of what was going on in sports. And so I've always had an interest in how a sports journalist does his or her job. And when I got hired over at the CBS O&O here in Chicago, WBBM TV Channel 2, I was hired as a public affairs producer, and I worked with Harry Porterfield and later some other very reputable reporters and covered things like teenage pregnancy, gang violence, and so forth. And that I became very fascinated by both of those things. And so those are 2 of my great passions and things that I want to do here on BSing, cover some of the societal issues that are going on, and also, of course, cover my number one love in entertainment, sports, but also delve into movies because I've had I've worked on movie crews and written scripts and so forth, and so I got a big passion for that. So that's part of what we'll be covering here on BSing in future weeks and future shows. Right now, I want to turn my attention to a topic that is very, very important in the NFL. We've got allegations from Brian Flores that he was involved in sham interviews, as he put it, that the job was already given away. In fact, he's got proof. Bill Belichick, the head coach of the New England Patriots, sent him a congratulatory note. He had the wrong Brian. It was Brian Dable. And so I want to, Ryan Kirkland Billings of the Barfly Tailgate Show immediately reached out and says, "Yeah, we need to talk about this." And Larro Golden of Bulls 101 wants to talk about the Bears in general, but I also want to lean on him for his his point of view on this issue. And of course, we'll talk a lot about what's going on with the Chicago Bears. So let's welcome those two gentlemen in now. It's Larro Golden and Ryan Kirkland Billings, RKB. How are you guys?
Doing all right, baby. How you doing? How you doing, Aldo? How you doing, Larry? It's first time on with you, baby.
I know, man. I know this is crazy, man. I appreciate Aldo allowing me to come on and
yes,
talk ball, but also some tough things going on right now in the NFL.
Yes,
so
yeah, and I just want to make an announcement here. This is not about me allowing you to come on. This is your home, baby. The Barroom Network is your home. So whenever you want to come on in front of the camera and talk sports, talk whatever you want, you just say, "Hey, Aldo, I'm going on tonight at 10 o'clock." Gotta make sure nobody else is going to be on at the same time. That's what I want the Barroom Network to be. It's an open foundation, open channel for all of us who work at the Barroom, and in weeks to come, we're going to have more and more of our followers join us as guests. We've got so many great people who every week are tuning in and participating in the chat room, asking questions, sharing their ideas, and so forth. And so we want to see and hear their faces and voices in the weeks to come. Right now, let's talk about, this big story with Brian Flores. He's made these allegations, and now Hugh Jackson is sort of backing him up. This is something that has been happening. And just a little background here. The Rooney Rule, which was implemented in the year 2003, said that you have to interview 2 external minority candidates for a head coaching job. At the time, after that first year of the Rooney Rule, there were 3 head coaches in the NFL. Here we are in 2022. There's only 1 African-American head coach in the NFL. And so when Brian Flores comes forward and shows evidence that he's got from Bill Belichick that he is being interviewed for a job that's already being filled, he called it a sham interview. And I think there's the first time I heard the report was on a local sports radio station, and the 3 white hosts, the 2 white hosts and 1 white producer, they were kind of making fun about it. They were laughing and so forth. And I don't think they understood the gravity of the situation, the disrespect that is being paid to a prominent member of the NFL coaching staff who is more than qualified to be an NFL head coach. But on top of that, just the systemic racism that is involved in the National Football League. It upsets me, and I'm sure it upsets you guys too.
No, most definitely.
Yeah, no, when I first saw it, I said to myself, because I'm a guy that tries to believe in good. I don't want to believe that a lot of the things that people have been talking about in terms of systemic racism inside the NFL, going through the Colin Kaepernick situation with the kneeling and everything like that. You would think that things, it would hit people and they would understand man, we are doing the wrong thing and we got to do something to change that. And after a while, with the whole Roger Goodell with Jay-Z, I'm like, maybe they're trying to do this. Maybe they're trying to step up. And then fast forward to, before the Brian Flores thing is the John Gruden, the email comes out, and I was a big fan of Gruden, the I forgot what it was, Gruden's Grinders. I used to every single day. I even sometimes go on YouTube before then, just to look at when Mitch was on there, Patrick Mahomes was on there, just I loved how he broke down players and talked to them about football. And then when that email came out, I'm like, that's crazy that these owners and head coaches are all in these emails talking trash, saying racist things. And, and then now you go to the Brian Flores thing and it's like, come on, man. And it is heartbreaking, man. I sometimes I talk to my wife about it, you know what I mean? And just because, you need to get it off your chest, and it is very frustrating. And seeing people, even in yesterday's in your show with Dan and Tooch, and Aaron when they were on, seeing people in there, oh man, he shouldn't have, he shouldn't have outed Bill Belichick like that. You know, he's the one that got him into the NFL. And it's like, why is that the point? Why is that the point? You know, like that just blew my mind. You know, like, oh, you're worried about Brian Flores outing Bill Belichick instead of the situation. Yeah. And that's what's frustrating. That right there shows that, like, we still have a long way to go. And you know, we could probably talk about this forever, but I'll let, you know, my boy Ryan talk. So
everything that you said, I absolutely agree with. Everything. So there's this profound scene in this movie called Blood and Bone. All right, stars Michael J. White. It's a very undercover movie. You can find it on Netflix. All right. The scene shows one of the main antagonists of the movie approach a group of white men about getting power, you know, having that respect and sitting at the table and eating with those people, you know what I'm saying, breaking bread with these people, knowing these people. And he comes up and he talks to him about it. You know, this is something I've been wanting and blah, blah, blah. And the white guy tells me, why would you want to sit at a table of old white men? Why would you want to be around us? And he tells him, it to me, that shows that I'm making progress. I'm gaining that power and that respect from people who do not look like me. And then when I say the most profound scene I've ever seen in a movie, low budget, back B movie, whatever you want to call it, is when he tells that man, we allow y'all to jump, to run. You're athletic. You're freaks of nature. And we allow that because you are that. It intrigues us. And he broke it down so blunt, you know, and it makes you sit and think. You have basketball players nowadays that come out, they talk about politics, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. You get told to dribble. You come out because you see the systematic racism that happens with police officers pulling over minorities, and you kneel in silent protest, and you're told that you're damn near a terrorist. It's only convenient when you're either running, jumping, or being some kind of athletic freak. And I sit here and I watch this what's going on now with this whole situation with Blind Forest. I'm gonna tell you this, man. People might look at me differently or whatever you want to say. I hate the Rooney Rule. I do, because the Rooney Rule shows that the NFL knew that there was an issue. Mm-hmm. When you have to force people to do shit, it takes all the integrity out of anything that happens afterwards. It makes what everybody does. It lessens it. So you could go out and say, I really wanted to get this black coach. But guess what? The Rooney Rule's in place. So fans, media, they're just bringing this guy in because, you know, they have to satisfy talking to two black men or I'm not even gonna say two black men, two minorities, because it's bigger than just being black. Mina Kimes was attacked by Jeff Garcia on Twitter, saying that she's never played football in her life. She's a woman. How could she talk about the game? Wow. You see it. It's more than just black versus white. It's more than just Asian versus black. It's bigger than all of that. And this situation just proves it. This is why I say, to me, it's bullshit. You knew that there was a systematic issue in your system. A rule that it does some good, but a rule. It's like telling kids you have to pick this kid and you have to pick this kid for your basketball team. One of you has to have one of these kids on this team. You're not picking that kid because you want that kid on your team. So how does that make that person look? To me, it's one of the biggest slaps in the face, especially being a black man, because now you get to tell me, I only talked to you because I had to. Impress me. That is the biggest slap in the face to anybody, period. And to me, like I said, it's disrespectful. To me, it's bullshit, and it just spits in the face of integrity. That's what it is to me. It spits in the face of it. But it's just one of those things, man. You have to get one of those things out, man. We have to get these things on the forefront. Now, I commend Brian Flores taking the steps that he's taking. You do this for the person that's coming up behind you. These people that look at and aspire to be coaches. These little black boys, little Hispanic kids, you know what I'm saying? These little Asian people, whoever wants to be a leader of men.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's laying the groundwork for that, man. And I commend him for it. And hey, I'm here for it, man. I'm riding with him until the wheels fall off on it because I want to see change. You know what I'm saying? So that was my piece on it. I definitely had to get that out, man, because it was burning me when I seen the post.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? I've seen when we had Sanjay Lal come in, you see people quick to say, "Oh my God, this is horrible." Oh, this is only because the Rooney Rule.
Mm-hmm.
Other black coaches, it's only because the Rooney Rule.
And again, I'm kind of like Ryan. Like, I may sound crazy, but it's almost like the Rooney Rule made things worse because I'd rather be told, right? I'd rather, if I was Brian Flores, I'd rather the Giants be like, you know what? Oh, don't even hit me up. Don't even say you're interested, because if you're just saying, they're talking about, I could just, this may be wrong with me, but I could just see whoever the owner is or whoever the GM is. Joe Shane, I think is the new GM there, but
he's from Elkhart. He's from here.
I could just see him, just picturing him now in an interview with Daboll, however long it was. They ended and they're like, guys, we love him. We got to have him. And he hits the button on the phone. Hey, how many black guys have we interviewed? Oh, we need one more. Okay, who's on the list? We got. Tell Brian Flores we want to meet with him. Thank you. Just so we can hit the quota. I'd rather it just be like, I get it at the point of like, minorities and everything getting a shot. But if it just becomes like, okay, we hit our quota, we got 2 black guys, what the heck? Let's get a guy, let's get an Asian guy in here just so we look good. We interviewed an Asian guy and, with 2 black guys, we're going to look good in the paper. Make sure we get that in the paper. But we're going to go with Daboll. That's horrible. Right. Like, how can put yourselves in Brian Flores' shoes? The dude is from New York. He probably said, you know what? If I can get this job, be able to make my city happy, be the head of the Giants, like he's probably, just hurt, man. The fact that the coach that got him into the league mistakenly messages him, tells him, "Oh, hey, you got the job," and he's like, "Whoa, I didn't even have an interview yet. I'm that good." Hold on, like, oh my God, hey, and then you at some point he's gonna hit you like, wait, hold on, there is a Brian Daboll also, so let me, coach, who you're talking to? And then when he hits you and he's like, Brian Daboll, I can only imagine how he felt. It's horrible, man. I
was like, nobody deserves to feel that, man. Yeah. To know that you have to go sit somewhere and talk to some people who already have their decision made in mind. So it's a waste of time.
It's disgraceful. It really is. Rich Kid in the chat room says, "Hey Aldo, why don't you let your guests rip on white men like you?" I don't understand what you mean by that, Rich. I am not ripping on white men. I am ripping on racism. And what we have seen, there is indisputable proof. Mule Skinner, who is a devout barroom listener, he's here for every show. He writes, "I'm out, Aldo. It's a great show, but I prefer to remain neutral until I hear the entire story." I understand that there are 2 sides to every story. And I understand that Brian Flores has built as a reputation of being very difficult to work with. Those were the initial reasons that we were given for why he was dismissed at Miami, despite the fact that he finished the season with an 8-1 record. So I think that there's enough proof here when we look at the data to say that there is racism going on in the NFL. Don't take it from me. take it from reliable sources. There was an independent study done over at I think it was the University of Texas. Let me see. I think I have it. I tweeted it out just the other day. Here it is. This is a quote from Professor George Cunningham, professor of sports management at Texas A&M University. He's a white man. And he wrote, "My research shows that biased decision-making, organizational cultures that value similarity, and societal forms of bias and discrimination are all to blame for the lack of diversity among NFL head coaches." This is somebody who, along with his staff of students, very carefully looked at all of the issues going on in the NFL and came up with that summation on, I think, a 50 or 60-page study. This stuff exists, and it doesn't just exist in the NFL. It exists in all industry. When people are powerful and they get to make decisions, a lot of times, and it's not overt racism, it's just an inherent bias that they have, that I want to be around people who I'm more comfortable with, people that I grew up with and so forth, which is why over the decades, there's been legislation to integrate people so that we can all get along better, so that we can understand people's different cultures, so that we can appreciate diverse points of view. That's what's going on here. When you have 30 of the 32 owners who are primarily white and have grown up in white-only cultures, they are going to have a predilection, whatever the word is, towards hiring people who are similar to them, similar backgrounds, and that is wrong. So the lawsuit that Brian Flores has brought forward, the civil lawsuit, he is seeking increased influence of Black individuals in hiring, increased objectivity of hiring, terminating GMs, head coaches, and coordinators, increased number of Black coordinators. And I think everybody knows that over 70% of the players in the National Football League are Black. And that's not represented with the assistant coaches, coordinators, and of course with head coaches. Incentivizing hiring and retention of Black GMs, head coaches, and coordinators. There's been a proposal that perhaps a team that hires Black GMs, head coaches, and coordinators get supplemental draft picks. And finally, a transparency of pay for GMs, head coaches, and coordinators. Didn't we just see George McCaskey decide not to reveal what the contract of Matt Eberflus was? Why is that? Why can't we know what both the Black Ryan Poles and the white Eberflus are making in terms of money? That kind of transparency is necessary in order to achieve some type of equality. Now, those are my opinions, but I think that my opinions are backed up by facts. Guys, you want to comment on any of that?
I totally agree with everything you're saying, Aldo. And honestly, people that choose not to be understanding and be open-minded and try to put themselves in other people's shoes, just try. You don't have to take your, I don't know, man. I just feel like people are so closed-minded and so that didn't happen. That how do we know Flores is such a bad, he's hard to work with. Well, how about you think about, okay, the GM owner was telling them, hey, to lose games on purpose, we'll give you this much money. I'm sorry, if you're a competitor and you're a leader of men, how can you tell your guys or let me tell you something. When you play sports and you're a player, when something's up, right? You know when coach ain't calling the plays like he usually calls. Coach ain't having practices intense like they usually are. What's going on, right? Players know. So how can you be a head coach and say, and do things differently so you can lose? Like, dudes don't get to the highest level just to lose, man. I just feel like maybe he's hard to work with because he doesn't want to lose on purpose, right? I don't. I don't understand why people just can't look at what has came out and listening to Hugh Jackson is coming out. I believe I can't remember the name, but I think there's another person that's coming out that is on the staff now that says, hey, I got your back because I've been through this. So like, there's going to be more and more people that come out because, you know, and I know there's going to be, you know, why is he coming out now? You know, like, why is he saying it now? You know, and it's like, well, you know, somebody has to be the first person, you know,
somebody has to take the step.
Exactly. You know, and you know how it is, man. Like, it's like, you know, it's like when somebody takes that step and he looks like you or has that same situation that you've been through, you get a little bit more comfortable. Like, okay, now I'm not the only one. So it's like, you know, man, I just can't, I can't believe some people, man, like just being open-minded, dog. Like I can't believe it. That's just where I'm at, man, with it. That's all.
I think it's important. When I worked in corporate America, I was part of a diversity team, and I did a lot of research into, you know, why diversity was important. And one of the things that I made a presentation to a group of hundreds of people, and I told them that diversity is important for two reasons. Number one, it's good for business, because when you have a diverse team of decision makers, whether it's in the marketing department, whether it's in the sales department, whether it's in product development department and so forth, when you have a diverse team, they're going to bring diverse ideas. So in the product department, they're going to bring ideas about, hey, there's a Mexican dish that we could use for this food that we're saying, and these spices, you know, from Mexico would add really good. They got ideas on how to make the product. I worked for a restaurant company. They have ideas that increase sales. They have ideas on how to market to diverse audiences. The commercials that you see in Spanish language TV stations are different in style and color and music than the ones that you see for mass information, on and on. It's good for business. And when you look at the Hispanic population, which is where I'm from, we have a purchasing power of tens of billions of dollars. We spend money on products. So if you're not going to talk to us, if you're not going to try to talk to us in words and style that we can identify with, that we grew up in, then you're doing us a disservice. We're going to go look over here for a different restaurant company that does that. And the second reason is because it's the right thing to do. A lot of people like to bring up, well, this whole affirmative action stuff, you know, that's wrong and so forth. Guess what? We've had affirmative action in this country since the day the Pilgrims came over. Every time I grew up watching television in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the only Hispanic representation I ever saw on television was Ricky Ricardo on the I Love Lucy show. There was nothing else, nothing else. And for my Black brothers and sisters, what did they grow up with? And so you saw, you know, some Black TV shows and stuff, but it was always predominantly a white point of view, a Eurocentric point of view. And we have to start to be more sensitive to that. This upbringing of America is based on white supremacy. It is based on white people looking at America and saying, this is ours, when it's not. It belongs to all of us, Black, white, brown, every color. And you have to start accepting that, because we're not going to go away. We're not.
Aldo, you hit a great point, right? And people listening, and I know there are some people that I made it full screen because I don't want to read the comments because I may get irritated, but I know there are some people in the comments probably like going crazy.
Please speak on this, because I've been looking at the comments this whole time, and it's some people I need to speak on.
But I'm not even going to hit on them, because the thing is like I think people are like, when they see stuff like the Brian Flores deal, and all the other things like Colin Kaepernick and other things that have popped up, like, oh, Black people trying to make it all about them. Oh, no. The thing is like, we want it to be equal. Like, we're not saying make this all about Black people. We're saying we want to be right. We want to be at the table with you. You know what I'm saying? We want to sit at the table, break bread with you, have supper, eat chicken, eat everything. You know what I mean? We want to eat together, but we don't want to be like, hey, you know, the white people and everybody sitting at the big table, and you know, the minorities sitting at the kiddie table. You know what I'm saying? And hey, we waiting for y'all to get older so y'all can sit at this big table. Like, no, like we want to come sit at the table with you guys. This is. We want this country to feel like it's ours. Like, we're not, you know, and I obviously don't want to take it to the other thing of the, because people would probably be like, yo, I'm trying to listen to sports, but the BLM, right? And I'm not even gonna go further. I'm not gonna go further. I promise you guys. But like, we want to be with y'all. Like we want to walk down the street and talk to you guys, and not feel like, hey, we got to act a certain way because people might get, their feather, we might ruffle some feathers. You know what I mean? We gotta, walk with our head down or pull our head down just so we don't, make you feel uncomfortable. Like, no, we want to be able to talk and hey, how you doing today? Or just to, and people may say like that's crazy, but like growing up, man, like, man, dog, like there are so many stories, and that didn't change me. That didn't change me because I'm such a huge person, and like there are good people in this world, and I'm not gonna allow the people that are doing these crazy things in the NFL, like the owner of what was it, McNair, I think it is, of the Texans. Is that who it was? I can't remember. But I remember when he was saying, "Oh, we can't let the prisoners take over the jail," or something like that, talking about the players kneeling. And it's like that's the stuff we're talking about, guys. Like, it's like, come on now. Like, I can't go further because I'll keep going. So that's just what I really had to say, man.
And with what I'm saying on this is because, like I said, to me, it's not even about it just being a black man. I got into a conversation with one of my coworkers yesterday. What if the roles were reversed and it was a black man who was hired immediately and a white man was told, "Hey, we're going to bring you in, but this guy's hired." I told him, I said, you know what? In that case, I still would feel some type of way because at the end of the day, it's about being a man of your word. It's about integrity. It's about you holding a certain, what's the word I'm looking for right now? A certain mystique to a job, let's say, you know what I'm saying? I want to know that everything that we're doing is of equal status. It's not about me being better than you. It's not you being better than me. It's okay. Both of these men are being sat down at the table. We're going to take one of these men because we believe in one of these men's philosophies. I can give a fuck whether he's black, white, purple, orange, whatever the colors you want to go with nowadays. It is. If this is a man of character, and what does my man say all the time, McCaskey? This is a man of conviction. We are all convicted in picking this guy. That's what I want for everybody, not just me, not just Aldo, not just Larry, not just Threezy in the chat. It's not about the just being black. It's not about that. So I don't want people to think that, dude. I wrestled. This is a predominantly white sport. Do you know how many times I was called the N-word or being told that I wasn't going to be good enough? Because it's a white sport, but that doesn't change me. I come in, I go to work just like everybody else, and then it turns out I was actually fucking good. That's all that we want. Everybody just wants equality. You should never have to hear from somebody before you go to an interview. Oh, this person got the job, so what you're doing is bullshit. That's a waste of my time. That's a waste of your time. Yeah. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to ever feel that. But like my man Larry said, like I said, I know y'all want to talk sports. I know y'all want to talk sports, but to me, this is prevalent in what we have to talk about in the sports world nowadays because this is unfortunately the world we live in. So just wanted to keep it, 100 on that, man. That's all it is.
Yeah. I just have to. We could talk about this for hours, and it really does deserve hours of discussion. Yeah. And so we'll be talking about this in the future here at the Barroom Network. This is an issue that is not going away, and there's just a lot of misunderstandings. I think that a lot of my brothers and sisters in the white community immediately feel threatened when we make these allegations about racism, and this is not really about you at all, other than we would love for you to have a little bit more empathy and understanding about the plight of what happens to people who are not white in this country. But really what it comes down to is that this is about people in power. And when people in power continually exclude other people when they are making hires and making giving opportunities to people who are not like themselves, skin color and background and so forth, then that's a problem. That's a problem in our great country. This country was founded with some outstanding principles that we just have not lived up to. And so it's time that we have these tough conversations and we do it in a civil manner. And I think that's what we've done here today. So now let's turn our attention to the Chicago Bears, because first of all, my man Larro says, "Hey man, I need to get out because I'm a Bulls expert, but you know me, I love the Bears even more." So, Larro, I'll start it off with you, my man. Tell me, what you think about all the new hires and the direction of this team, and what you thought about the press conference and so forth.
So, man, you're right. I hit you up because I'm like, dude, I gotta get it off. So here's the deal, right? So the press conference, right? The thing that everybody's talking about,
right?
I think the biggest thing for me is I go in. I mean, we've had Pace, we've had Nagy, Emery, Fox, all these different coaches, GMs, but so it kind of like groomed me to how I wanted to come into this press conference, and I ain't gonna lie, I was eager for the press conference, and I think when I go into the press conferences, I try to listen for buzzwords. I try to listen for things that I'm interested in, and to be honest with you, I was very encouraged because it wasn't a lot of fluff. Like with Nagy, I have this card BU, and it really resonates with me, and I know the guys are I don't like, no disrespect, Nagy, I don't care about that. Tell me what you're going to do, what you believe in terms of your roster. How are you going to make this roster better, right? I don't care about the word salad, Nagy, and we got a lot of that for 4 years, however long he was there. But like the thing is, people always, the Eberflus thing, right? People talk, oh my God, he's corny, the hits, and let me tell you something. When you're a player, like that's what coaches do. They have the acronyms, they have the coachy coach sound. That's what coaches do. Mm-hmm. So that's not like trying to be what am I looking for? That's not him trying to please the audience. No, that's him. Like that's what coaches are. And I appreciate that, man. Like don't change just to look good for the fans. Like show us who you are. And I truly believe Eberflus did that, right? We know he's going to have the hits acronym. He's going to have the loafs thing. So we know as fans, because like that's the biggest thing for us, right? Like we love this team, and we, the Bears have been very close to the vest with a lot of stuff, right? With the reporters, they can't go there. They can't go there and be there for the whole practice. They maybe get 20 minutes to get there and take pictures, and they can't really say many things on Twitter. So like as fans, we're sitting there like, okay, what did Justin do? Like, how does Khalil look? Like we want to know. And I love the fact that he told us, right? This is what I'm going to expect of these guys, and like I said, that's what the players are going to, that's what they're going to be used to. Then you move over to polls. I love polls, right?
Yes.
And I can't sit here and tell you that I was like pounding the table. We got to get polls. We got to get polls, because honestly, I didn't know much about them, right? And after I did a lot of digging, like I have notes. I have notes on Getsy that I took. I did my own like little,
awesome.
I want to know. I just want to know who these guys are. But like with Poles, the one thing I love about Poles, right? Pace, he came from the Saints, a lot of success with Drew Brees, a lot of success with a head coach like Sean Payton, and that's all he knew. And I kind of felt like once he got here and he had that 2018, everything clicked, and like that's what he knew. He knew success, right? But once adversity hit, right? Players getting injured, having to retool a roster, and things like that, I felt like that's when he fell off, right? He did. Oh man, I've never dealt with this. I never dealt with not having a Drew Brees. I never dealt with not being able to just say, all right, Sean, you can take over. You got it. Like, I feel like with Poles, with the Chiefs, and we know this all too well with as a Bears organization, the Chiefs wasn't always like this. The Chiefs used to be Chiefs, man, right?
Chiefs.
And he's been there. He's been there through the mud of them being a horrible organization, going from a horrible organization to the Jamal Charles years, right, where it was all about Jamal Charles. Then they got Alex Smith. Then Andy Reid that came, changed the whole offense. So he's seen the offense go from Jamal Charles. He also seen how the offense changed to having like a back like a Spencer Ware, who was very similar when I did, both him and Dave Montgomery 5'10". Spencer Ware is 228 pounds. David Montgomery 222 pounds. Spencer Ware ran a 4.62 and 40. David Montgomery ran a 4.63. So very similar backs, right? So he's seen how you use a back like that. He's seen how an offensive line needs to be put together in order to make the run game stronger. And then through those years, they got Patrick Mahomes. So he went from the mud, the basement, to being in the penthouse. So he's seen what it takes to, hey man, it's gonna take time, but I know what we need to do to get it done. I've been in these grueling rooms with looking at prospects, knowing who's a flop, and things like that. So I respect Poles because I think he knows, he's seen it, he's seen what it takes to get there. And the next thing I loved about him was that hiring of an assistant GM.
Ooh,
because, dude, like that to me shows that he's real. He understands this is his first time in that position. He's not going to get in there and be like, I know what I'm doing. I did this. I don't worry about it. I got it. He says to himself, like, I'm confident in my abilities, but I know there are going to be some things that may come up that I need help with. Let me bring Ian Cunningham over here, who's been with the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome and with Howie Roseman. Like that to me says a lot, man. Like that says a lot that he is willing to let us know, like, hey guys, I'm here to be your GM, but I'm not going to sit here and say I got all the answers. So I want to bring help, bring more voices into the room, and that's huge. I love that, and again, I don't want to be, I've seen people tell Aaron yesterday that he's a ball washer, and like we don't know anything about these guys. But like that's the thing. Like I'm not saying that he's going to be amazing, but what I am saying is he's showing us that he is willing to do what it takes to be successful already. With bringing in that assistant GM. And I'm sorry, Ryan, there's one more thing I want to hit.
Go ahead, baby. Go ahead.
Luke Getsy, right? So I wanted Pep, because he's worked with Andrew. He worked with Andrew Luck, right?
Yes.
He worked with Justin Herbert. And then we know, all Bears fans, if you're a hater, I'm sorry, but all Bears fans know, the minute that Roger Goodell came up to that podium and said Justin Fields, or I'm sorry, it wasn't even Roger Goodell. It was Carlos. I forgot his last name, but it was the nice Hispanic guy. Came up, said we got Justin Fields. We know what we got in that kid. Mm-hmm. We just need the right people in the building. And so, like I said, I did my own research. Because I don't want to be the guy on Twitter saying, "Oh, this guy's gonna be great," and I have nothing to back it up. So, but like with Luke Getsy, like just going back and looking at his history, for one, the one thing that I this sounds bad, but like with Nagy, right? I at first I liked Nagy. He was, I felt like he had the juice, but over time it just didn't, whatever. But with Luke, right, he was very successful as a college quarterback, but also into his coaching career, right? One of the things that I looked at is I wanted to see how successful he was. He didn't call plays, but like when he went to be a part of the offense, how they do. And to be honest with you, looking into it, he really made an imprint, right? So he went to Western Michigan, became the wide receiver coach. And Corey Davis, that he went there. He was the coach when Corey Davis was a freshman at Western Michigan. Corey Davis, MAC Freshman of the Year, and turned into a top 10 pick in the draft, right?
Pick.
Right, and then fast forward to Devontae Adams real quick. Devontae Adams was having a tough few years in the beginning of his career. They get Luke Getsy, he takes off, and even recently, Devontae Adams says, "I give a lot of my success that I've had. I give a lot of credit to Luke Getsy because if it wasn't for him, like I don't think I'd be the player that I am today." Right. The other thing that pops up when you start reading is teacher, great teacher, and that's something that you continue to hear with all these hires that they're making. You know, Getsy, great teacher. Eberflus, great teacher. Alan Williams, great teacher. Berganzi, great teacher. Like, you just continue to hear these things that you need in order to progress your players and make them better. And that's something he said in his little 5-minute video with Joniak. Is like, yo, to be honest with you, those position coaches, that's the backbone of your organization, because those are the guys that work with your players day in and day out. So you need teachers on those positions. And just to cut it short, right? So I'll cut it short because I can keep going. But Luke Getsy, when he came back to the Packers, they instantly became one of the best third down conversion, third down teams in the league, right? And then I read an article that came out January 14th of this year. Luke Getsy wasn't calling plays, but he was in charge of third down situational play calls. So that's huge, because the Bears were always bad at third down.
We always been cheeks at that.
So the last 2 seasons, they've been in like top 5 in third down conversion rate, and top 5 team on third down. Last year, they were second in third down, the second best third down team according to DVOA, and they were first in conversion rate. So I just love everything about Getsy. The more you read into him, in the Shanahan offense, like the RPOs. Last thing. I promise. Last thing. I promise you. I read into this, right? So Justin Fields, and this is why I think that when they read an article, they said they're going to build the offense around Justin Fields. So I wanted to do my own research, like I said already. And Luke Getsy, he was with the Packers, left the Packers to go be the Mississippi State offensive coordinator in 2018. Rewind in 2017, the head coach of Mississippi State in 2018 was Joe Moorhead. 2016, 2017, Joe Moorhead was the offensive coordinator for Penn State. One of the best offenses one of the best offenses in the country those 2 years. They went 21-5 with him as the offensive coordinator. One of the best offenses. Justin Fields was committed to go to Penn State before he went to Georgia. He decommitted, and if you look into what happened, Joe Moorhead took the job in Mississippi State. So he decommitted because I believe he wanted to be in that offense. And I believe when you're a player, right, put yourself as, like, say you're a quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. What are some of the things you're looking for when you go on a visit or when you sign that letter of intent? What is the reason you're going to that school? And let's be honest, like guys like Justin Fields, I'm not trying to downplay academics, because he is a smart player. He is a smart person too. But like, you're not going to get your master's or get your bachelor's right away. Like, you're trying to get to the next level. So you want to be in an offense in a scheme that fits you, that makes, goes with your strengths. And I think that's why he chose Penn State to be in that offense, where it's very, very outside zone, wide zone, play action, deep ball. We won't be seeing a lot of hook and curls and flats. Won't be doing that. But like, I'm just very happy because, again, we've heard Nagy, right? We've heard Nagy and Pace talk about we love this kid, and then the very next week they sent him out there to get his head knocked off in Cleveland, right? Words don't mean anything, right? And people were mad at, they're not gushing over Justin Fields. I rather them be the way they were, right? Well, we want to get to know him first, right? We want to get to know him. We want to know how he ticks, and then we know how to coach him, and they're going to treat him right? Nagy was gushing over him. He's going to be special, but never did him the way he needed to be done, right? So words are nothing. Actions are going to get guys like Luke Getsy that runs the same type of things that Justin committed to Penn State to run, and bringing in guys like what's his name? They call him Simo in Pittsburgh. Chris Morgan. Chris Morgan to be the offensive line coach. Yeah. He was with Shanahan in the years they were in the Falcons. So that lets me know that they are building coaches and a scheme that is going to be an offense that Justin is going to be good in. And that's all I'll say, because I've taken up a lot of time. But like that is good stuff, and it makes me feel like these guys are doing what they need to do.
Yeah. Great stuff, man. I really appreciate that. What you got there, man?
So this is my son's story.
Forky.
I don't have a list. I didn't come prepared like my man did. I just had to make that joke, man. Oh my God. Oh, every point you hit. I love it, man. I love the preparedness. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things I did know of, you hit on. When Eberflus was hired, it became one of those things of, hey man, everybody needs to chill. You want somebody that's going to be a leader of the team. You know what I'm saying? You want somebody that's going to be, hey, I'm here to fix this. I'm here to fix the culture. I'm here for X, Y, and Z. At that time, I believed he was going to call plays on defense. That was my thoughts. You know what? He's a defensive coordinator. He has a great defense. He wants to call his defense.
Mm-hmm.
So at the press conference, when he said, that's not what I'm doing, I got a guy for that. Mind blown. Tells me this man wants his coordinators to build, and his coordinators are going to be the ones calling the show. Essentially, he's gonna supervise all that. The offensive coordinator to me, and I feel like it should be for every fan. It was going to be the most important hire.
Yes,
this was who we were going to hitch our wagons to say this man is going to nurture and bring along Justin Fields. So that's why I never downplayed this Eberflus hire. They started naming all the people he was close to. He wants the Shanahan's offense. I don't know if you watch Bar Tailgate enough. AC is a huge fan of the Shanahan offense and has been pounding his chest to get somebody from that tree. Mm-hmm. So you can bring in Getsy with his ties to Moorhead. You know that my man wanted to come out and he wanted to play for Penn State because that offense was amazing. It was amazing. I watched them beat the shit out of Michigan for years. Amazing. Mm-hmm. So to me, the hire it's home. It's a home run. It's a home run hit. Mm-hmm. You see that a lot of Packers players are coming out saying that Getsy was a wizard. He was a great coach. He was a hell of a teacher. Not just Devontae Adams. You got Aaron Jones coming out and saying that man was big. You know what I'm saying? Aaron Rodgers wanted Getsy. That's big to me. You got people like that are coming into the building. They're great teachers. And that's what Fields needs. He needs a great teacher, not somebody that's going to try to force him to be something. So my boy Larry hit it off, man. So I ain't going to burn up too much more time on that, man. I'm excited. I'm excited with you, man.
And again, I'm not excited because I think these guys are going to be great. And I'm excited because I feel like this organization is going about it the right way, and the actions are backing it up. It's not them talking about it, and then they go get a guy that runs, I don't know, whatever scheme that doesn't fit Justin Fields.
Yeah, we've seen that in the history of the Chicago Bears. We've seen that over and over and over again. You bring in Mike Martz after you draft Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen, a pass-catching tight end, and Mike Martz doesn't run an offense with a pass-catching tight end. He likes that tight end to be a third tackle. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you now going to give up on your tight end, Greg Olsen? Yes, they did. They traded him away, and the guy is going on to have a Hall of Fame career. It is remarkable. I want to show a little bit of tape that I showed a couple of days ago. Actually, it was yesterday on the Dan and Aldo show. This is Luke Getsy when he was with the Packers being asked about Jordan Love's footwork. And this is a prime example of what Larro was just talking about. These guys are teachers. And so listen to his response about how you've got to align your feet along with the progression.
Interesting when you said you want to let his feet do the talking. Can you kind of just explain how the feet leads to the decision that has to be made?
Yeah, so, every play, every route has a rhythm with your feet. And as you take that rhythm, if the person's not open, well, then it's time to move on in your progression. So it's time to get your feet pointed in another direction. And so if you're hanging too long in that one spot, well, then you're going to be late when you get to the next one. And that's when sacks and things like that start happening. So if you can just trust your feet, and as you're looking in the area you're supposed to, if it's not open, well, it's time to move on. And so that's, as a young guy, that's hard to do, because sometimes you want to give that primary progression an opportunity to get open, and you just can't. Then you have to just let your feet, like I say, if it's a left, right, and a hitch, or a left, right, and a plant, and they're not there, then you need to get your first hitch, or whether it's your second hitch, to your next in progression. And I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest challenge for young guys. And that like I said, it's been a huge emphasis this training camp with Jordan.
I love that explanation about footwork, because that's one of the keys to throwing accurate passes. We saw that with Mitchell Trubisky. His left foot would be pointing to the right or to the left, usually the left of the target. And so the throws were often inaccurate. And so we've got that guy. That guy, Luke Getsy, is now going to be preaching that to Justin Fields. And so Fields already came into the league with a reputation of being a very accurate thrower. You add in a teacher like that, and the accuracy is just going to get better and better and better. And it needs to be, because in the NFL, the game is so much faster than it is in college. So really love the breakdown, guys, on your thoughts, not only on the Chicago Bears, but also what is happening with the league and the big Brian Flores issue. Anything else you want to add before we close down this first episode of BSing?
Hey, man, I just want to come out and say, man, hey, it's great being on here with you boys, man. Larry, like I said, man, it's first time us being on, man. So, hey, now I'm looking forward to coming back on and messing with you and talking with you, bro. Yeah. I just want to say, man, we gonna be doing this, man. We're gonna be talking sports and football and everything else in between. So, like I said, it never stops here, man. It never stops. That man Aldo is one of the hardest working men in the industry. You gotta show that man all the love and support you can.
I do want to ask both of you guys a question.
Oh,
and everybody in the chat room as well. Obviously, y'all in here except for Don Burr. You're a Bears fan. I mean, you're not a Bears fan. You're a Lions fan.
Love Don Burr.
No, he's a Bears fan. Closeted.
But so with Luke Getsy getting all this praise with the from wide receivers, different wide receivers. How would you guys feel about, or I guess I should ask it this way. If Allen Robinson is open to coming back just because Pace and Nagy are gone, and he believes in what the Bears are doing, would you want him back?
This is a question that me and a couple of the guys were talking about. Yeah, for the simple fact, if he understands, hey, we're not going to pay you $18 million. This is the going rate. We're gonna need you to come in at this. And we're gonna take it from there. If A-Rob is on board with that, then yes, you bring A-Rob back, because I think Nagy's system sabotaged the shit out of his production. Every time you looked up, I'm sorry, the man was running the damn hitch, dog. That's not offense. Yeah, if you can bring him back and you can get another wide receiver into this mix, a mix of Darnell Mooney and A-Rob, who is actually the A-Rob that we've seen.
Yeah,
that's never a bad combination at all. A-Rob can get the 50-50 balls. He just has to be given the chance to go up and do it. So if he's open to coming back because of that situation, and it's at the right price, then of course I'm all aboard for A-Rob coming back. All aboard.
And I put this up on Twitter a few days ago. I said, I think the first person you ask is Justin Fields.
Exactly.
Good point.
I want to give you weapons. Let's talk about the weapons you had last year. Darnell is coming back, and we love the rapport that you have with Darnell. Now, what about Allen Robinson, who the last 2 years prior to you coming here, Justin, he averaged over 100 catches a season. What happened there? Do you think you can build a rapport? And Justin, I need really, really honest responses to this, because we're talking about millions of dollars we'd be investing and bringing him back. But if you think that there isn't going to be a rapport going on there, then we're going to move on. Here's a list of other free agents that we're looking at. That's the first discussion I would love. I mean, if I was the GM, that's what I would be talking about with my franchise quarterback, trying to get his input on something like that.
Right. I would say it's two names I would be looking at personally. Actually, it kind of blends into three. I love the idea of bringing Christian Kirk in if you can get him for a good price. DJ Chark, and I feel like a very dark horse name that people are not going to really like is Will Fuller.
I like Will.
You look at the speed aspect of Fuller, Shark, and Christian Kirk. It plays into what the strengths of Justin Fields are. He likes to go deep. You have those guys; they're burners.
Yeah.
But those are some cost-effective names that are just out there. So, yeah.
And tomorrow at 11 a.m., Greg Gabriel is going to be on, and he's got a couple of like dark horse free agent wide receivers that he wants to introduce to us and say these might be good targets to come. And I can tell you one name that he and I have talked about extensively. I like Alan Lazard of the Green Bay Packers. Big target. You know, that guy, for some reason, he never earned Aaron Rodgers' trust because I saw him open. In fact, in that last play that knocked out the Packers out of the playoffs, Rodgers forced it into double coverage to hit his man, Devontae Adams. It was incomplete, and he had Alan Lazard wide open down the middle of the field. Game winner right there, because now you're in field goal position and you got the game. So I'm not saying the guy's going to come in here and put up A-Rob type numbers, 100 catches, but he could be a third or fourth wide receiver. He's a huge target in the end zone. He plays special teams, and he's a very good blocker for the run game, which is what the identity of this team is going to be. You want wide receivers who are going to block for Montgomery and Herbert. So I think he's a guy we've got to look at.
Yeah, it's weird because when he a tight end coming out of Iowa State at first, and they switched him to wide receiver because he had the skill set. So
I think that's going to be a great episode to listen to because all of Greg has nothing but gems, but I think if you want to know what Poles is going to be looking at, because I think he told us, like, I'm going to be looking at second, third wave guys because I think those guys are going to be wanting to prove that they should have been in the first wave. So I think guys like Greg is going to talk about, and like you just said, Alan Lazard, are going to be probably the guys he's going to look at. So I think that's a very, if you want to know and you want to tune into a guy that knows football, that's been in the business, that's been at the highest level, that still has contacts in the NFL, I think that's a perfect episode to listen to.
And so with the limited amount of money that we have, because $40 million is like the sixth most, I think it's the sixth most cap money that we have, but we've got like over 30 free agents, guys who were big names. So you got to replace those guys. It's not like you can take that 40 million and bring in guys that are new and you still got to pay for a left tackle, you're right? Or you still got to pay big money for another linebacker because you're going into a 4-3 scheme, and so who's going to play the middle now? So there's limited amount of money, and one of the things that endears me so much to Ryan Poles is because he has said and he has demonstrated offensive line first, guys. We gotta get that offensive line ready to protect our quarterback. And so I'm fine with that. If we don't spend big money on a wide receiver this year and we get him in 2023 instead, and we have Darnell Mooney and some guys like Alan Lazard and some middle caliber wide receivers, but we have an offensive line now that's going to give Justin Fields 3-4 seconds to throw the ball. And we've got this outstanding rushing attack with Montgomery and Herbert. And hopefully Cole Kmet takes that next step in terms of as a pass catcher. Then all of a sudden we're talking about an extra touchdown a game, and that could be huge for this team with the defense that we hopefully will have.
I would really love to see the Bears bringing the tight end coach that just got fired from the 49ers. That is very intriguing to me. But yeah,
I think, and Justin also proved, I think that, we had us talking about Rodney Adams in the preseason because he's just so darn accurate that it doesn't matter. Like if you can create a little bit of separation, if you can just a little bit, he can get that ball to you. So I do think that, and here's the thing about Justin, people are very, 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 and rightfully so. He hasn't shown enough consistent flashes for anybody to be like, dude, he's going to be a stud, but I do think there are certain things, and I sometimes look at like the game, like as a coach, because I love coaching and I still coach. And I look for body language. I look for the intangible things, and there's that dude went out and got suplexed in Cleveland. Suplexed. Something that could have mentally just wrecked him.
Oh, man.
And he comes out the very next week and just, it's like nothing happened. Right. And like the types of hits he takes, the type of throws he makes, like there are certain things that you could look at with this guy and you could say he has the makeup for it. I just think that he needed better coaching. He also needed a better situation. I think he kind of told us in the press conference, like it was weird, like I he wasn't used to it. You know what I mean? Like a part-time leader. One day I'm a leader here. Next week I'm a leader there. Like,
yeah, I was really struck when he said that. He was asked, are you going to feel more comfortable being a leader this season? He says, yeah, because I came into camp and we were splitting leadership roles, Andy and me and so forth. It was awkward. Not, the Nagy was fired in large part because he gave the job to Andy Dalton. He gave it away, and that should not have been the case. You guys fight for the job. Or he should have just given it to Justin Fields, knowing that he was going to have some issues growing up like all rookie quarterbacks do, but give him all of those first-team snaps in preseason. Get him ready for game one, because what happened? He in game two, he had to come in because of an injury to Andy Dalton, and he was not ready because he didn't have all of the requisite practice time to really play at his best. And so, that was one of Nathan's failings.
Like, Aldo, think about this way too. Like, he didn't get any first team reps
at all.
And he would go into the preseason and looking at some film from the practices, making Rodney Adams look like a star, making Jesse James look really good. And there were a couple other receivers that didn't even make the squad, but when they were playing with Justin, they looked good, right? Think about what he could have looked like if he got first team reps with Allen Robinson, got first team reps with Cole Kmet, got first team reps with Darnell Mooney. And he's still connected with Darnell Mooney because they worked out on their own, like after practice. Right. And it's like, the dude just didn't have like the greatest start, because of the situation he came into. And I think as much crap that George McCaskey takes, and for a lot of it he deserves, I think he honestly went about this the right way. I think if anything, I respect him for being like, dude, I'm not letting him get out of here and get to Minnesota. I'm just not. If I have to go pick him up in my crazy jacket, in my Bears, jacket, and my Bears face mask, I don't care. This is the guy. I want him, and I respect that out of him, man. I mean, and did you guys listen to Bill Polian today? He was.
I gotta go listen because
I haven't got the chance.
I heard that in the chat room. That it was a great interview. I gotta go in.
Bill Polian, man, like he gave us some gems. And yeah, like you guys got to listen to it. It was a great interview to listen to because he was candid. It didn't feel like he was fluffing anything. Like it just felt like he was just letting it out.
Good.
And he continued. He was saying we. What I mean? Like we looked at this. And so it makes me understand that, like, dude, like he was in this, like, as if he was a part of this organization.
Yeah, he was in.
So I love it.
Larro, you're getting a lot of new fan members in the chat, and so I'm going to let people know, if you are also Chicago Bulls fans, then you should be listening or watching Bulls 101 every Saturday night, 11 p.m. Larro Golden and his buddy and co-host Chris Amundsen do a fabulous job of talking Chicago Bulls. It is a very analytical show, very smart basketball talk. It's not a fluffy show whatsoever. So if you're into the X's and O's and some smart talk, that's the show for you. And of course, my man RKB, when he's not at home being a great family man, he's out fighting fires and also a part of the Barfly Tailgate show on Sunday mornings. You guys really brought it. Thank you for this great third segment on this debut episode of BSing, or my new show here, where every couple of weeks or so, I'm just going to invite a bunch of people on and we're going to talk about what's going on in the news and so forth. I got a guy who I met recently who is a food photographer. He's a Puerto Rican guy, and one of the things he does is that he loves to do is go to Puerto Rican restaurants and shoot food and give reviews on these restaurants. I'm Puerto Rican. You don't think I want to talk to this guy? So he's going to be on a future show, and a lot of other people. And these two guys will be on as well because we had a great fun today. This is the Barroom Network. Larro, Ryan, any last thoughts before I pull the plug on this episode?
Hey, man, like I said, man, it's a pleasure being on here with y'all, man, always. And like I said, it's great getting on here with Larry, man, for one of the first times. And you're a wealth of knowledge, man. I love it. Keep doing your thing, brother.
I appreciate you, man. I really do, because I didn't want to come on here and sound like like I didn't know what I was talking about. But I just want to get out there for Tooch, if he's listening, because I know he's a realist. He ain't a pessimistic person. but like I want to get it out that, like, I understand. We know we have no reason to believe these guys will be successful, because it's first time head coach, first time GM, first time OC, first time, just a bunch of first times, right? And I understand, but I think the actions, like I said, I just want to make this last point. The actions, right? We heard a lot of talking from Pace. We're going to draft a quarterback every year, right? Nagy, we got to figure out the whys.
Thank you.
We got to run the ball. Then you don't run the ball. And, we heard a lot of talk, but these guys from day one have shown a lot of actions, right? Eberflus, we have to build the offense around Justin Fields. You go look at who he's hired. You can dig a little bit deep into who these guys are. They're building this offense around Justin Fields. That's just what they're doing. And Eberflus, honestly, the reason why I feel confident in him as a leader is because Nagy came in. He was calling Andy's offense for a couple games, not like years, right? But we have 4 years of data, and even more of Eberflus, of he can be a leader, and that hits that everybody thinks is corny. Oh, it's been working for 4 years, right? It's been those same guys. They're at the NFL level. They're grown men. They're listening, and they were one of the best defenses in the league for 4 years, and number one in takeaways for the 4 years, if I remember right. So, like there's substance to believe that these guys can be successful. And again, the actions, man, like we're done. All Bears fans should be done with the talk and really look for the actions. And these guys are doing it, man. And I really loved what Poles said about the offensive line, about like, dude, like you got to be nasty. You need to be nasty. And I want to see guys picking that quarterback up. He said that was one of the first things he saw on film, is that one of the things he noticed is they weren't picking him up.
Exactly.
And
the hell,
that fires me up, because I'm at home, like, Fetty, why you mad at Tevin? Why you mad at Tevin? How about you go take care of him, and then y'all get to the locker room after the game, be like, hey, brother, I got your back. But hey, come on now. With that penalty, it might have hurt us, but I got your back though. But that penalty, brother. But let's just go pick up Justin and then worry about that later. But like, it really ticked me up, because I tell this to my guys when we play ball in practice, in games. When your brother hits the ground, everybody should be going to sprint and pick him up. That's your brother. You're on the same team. No, exactly. And I understand sportsmanship, other team helping the team up, but I don't want to see that shit. I don't want another person that hasn't been in practice grinding with us, hasn't been in games fighting with us, to pick our brother up. Sorry. And that's how I feel in every sport. And I'm honestly, the stuff that you're hearing and the stuff that you're seeing action-wise, I'm liking what's going on so far, man. So that's all I got to say.
That's a perfect way to end the show on a hopeful note, because hope is a good thing, as they say in Shawshank Redemption, and maybe it's the best of all things. So, with that, we'll say goodbye, and thank you guys again for being on this debut episode of BSing. And we'll be back with more programming tomorrow, 11 a.m. It's Greg Gabriel, and then we've got a special Crosstown Crosstalk. We're gonna be on prime time tomorrow. Vinny Parisi has a very special guest, and I've forgotten her name, but she's gonna be a special guest. She's a big Boston Red Sox fan, so that's gonna be interesting. Talking to Graciela Starr, that's her name, and so I'll be on the lookout for that at 8 p.m. tomorrow, right here on the Barroom Network. All right, for Ryan, for Larro, and everybody else that appeared on this show, thank you all very much. We'll see you soon.